everyone. Welcome to the City of Frankfort Board of Commissioners. This is a special work session for December. It is December 11th. Time is 3 p.m. I'll ask our city clerk to call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson?
Present.
Commissioner Unger? Present. Commissioner Waldridge? Present. Commissioner May?
Present.
Mayor Wilkerson?
Present. We have a quorum, and we'll begin with citizens' comments. And these are limited to agenda items only. And if I call your name, ask you to come to the podium, state your name, and remind you that you get 5 minutes, and we'll give you a 1-minute warning. And first, we have Tom Boone. Tom, are you here?
My name is Tom Boone. I live here in Frankfort, Terralinda. I was just reading the newspaper, and the article about the Frankfort Plant Board is concerning to me with the communications. For one understanding, the state wants to make a law that's going to force the communications Frankfort Plant Board to be sold by the end of next year. Is that true?
Well, that's what we're going to hear about that tonight.
Well, that's what I'm here for. I talked to Frankfort Plant Board, and they said if this would happen, they would lose at least 70 positions. People who worked there a long time would not have a job. And not counting that since Frankfort Plant Board is a non-profit organization, if you bring in a profit organization, all the bills are going to go up. Your communication, your cable box, your phone, internet. And somebody like me that's retired on fixed income, that hurts my class of people. So I'm just here and concerned about where this is going to go. If this is going to happen, take place, what's y'all's view on this board here, what y'all think about what's getting ready to take place. And that's mainly what I'm here for. The person who's going to put the law into effect, is he here today?
He's supposed to be. I don't see him in the crowd yet, but he's coming to speak, yes.
It'd been nice to put some questions to him. Why does the state want to involve themselves in a private entity like Frankfort Plant Board, which has been in business for 1945? I would like to ask him why they would want to involve themselves, and how many cities across this state has private entities to begin with that runs a cable and a communication system. Probably not very many. I used to live in Lexington, and the cable system over there, which is not private, is for business. You know, they make a lot of money over there. The cable over there is very high, very high. And if Frankfort Plant Board ends up losing this position and has to sell their system, well, there's no telling what the price would be on cable and internet. So that's my concern. Since he's not here, I can't ask him any questions, but
we'll ask the questions.
But you can ask him the questions, and I would like to know everybody's opinion on the board about what they want to take place here.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Boone. Well, we're going to see what he's going to present, and I'm sure.
Okay, that's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Boone. And next, Richard Rosen.
First, I'd like to read comments from my wife, Anna Marie Rosen. She is a former chairman of the board of the Frankfort Plant Board and a former city commissioner. She would like to be here, but she is actually attending the Frankfort Plant Board meeting, which is happening at the same time where this issue is also being discussed. So she has asked me to read these comments. I want to thank Senator Williams, State Senator Williams, for taking an interest in Frankfort. I realize that the majority of his District 20 constituents reside in northern Kentucky, and only a fraction of his time can be given in service to Franklin County. The proposed state legislation to ensure the sale of Frankfort Plant Board Telecom is destructive and a bad idea. I believe that selling any part of FPB would be a disservice to the community of Frankfort. It would be short-sighted and see the telecommunications assets of Frankfort Plant Board sold for at least It would be short-sighted to see the telecommunications assets of Frankfort Plant Board, and for them to be sold is bad for 5 significant reasons. Number one, the telecommunications business segment of Frankfort Plant Board has a long history of importance to Frankfort. When television was introduced, cable was required due to the geography of Frankfort and Franklin County, as capturing a signal was not effective with the use of a simple antenna. Owning the cable service was important then, and the value of local ownership of cable and internet service is equally vital today. Number two, Cable 10 is an intricate part of Frankfort Plant Board and is a critical service to the community as a beacon of local sports and general community news. This would not be a priority under the ownership of a large company. Number three, like other small businesses, Frankfort Plant Board has local employees and makes financial expenditures in the community. This money feeds back into Frankfort. Number four, selling a community asset is short-sighted. The large amount of money paid to purchase Frankfort Plant Board Telecom would be charged back to the ratepayers. Number five, in addition, rather than ratepayer dollars being put back into improving operations, profits would go to the pockets of executives and stockholders outside of our community. In conclusion, the proposed legislation, while a seemingly broad perspective, pertains only to one municipal utility in the entire Commonwealth. Amazingly, it seems that this bill is focused decisively on Frankfort Plant Board with the goal of undermining the finances of Frankfort and Franklin County. At present, the City of Frankfort is the owner of Frankfort Plant Board. Our voices are heard through discussions with FPB board members and the City Commission. Selling FPB Telecom means a loss of equity, a loss of community-focused service, and a loss of local control. I respectfully request that Senator Williams and the legislature uphold the belief in community-made decisions and not implement this bill and allow Frankfort to continue independent governance. If I have time remaining, I'd like to make a couple of comments of my own. Senator Williams' gerrymandered district includes Frankfort, but he does not live here. We do. We are the ones who should be making our decisions. It is just the ultimate in arrogance for him to pretend that he knows better for our community than we do, and you, our elected officials, do for us. The money that presently is coming back into Frankfort is going to go into the pockets of some big corporation, possibly AT&T. It'll go to the stockholders, but it'll also go to their executives. Just in case you were wondering, the CEO of AT&T last year made $22.9 million himself. If our other utilities end up being sold, for example, Kentucky Utilities, the CEO last year made $10 million.
1 minute.
Okay, so why is Senator Williams doing this? He's not doing it for the benefit of Frankfort. It seems like the only other reason I can think of would be to benefit individual corporations, and that has the smell of something rotten to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen. Dustin Cole?
Could I hold my comments until Senator Williams appears?
Can we do that on that? We're sticking to a special agenda tonight, so.
So we don't expect him here?
He's on the agenda. That's why everyone's here, and that's why we did an earlier meeting.
I'd like to direct my remarks to him rather than.
Maybe we can help you do that. I don't know if we can wait. You want to vote to allow the citizens' comments? We'd have to, potentially opens it up for all of them. And I think if that's the intent, we'll have to do a special meeting. Yeah. Right. Like a public hearing or something.
The specific issues I'd ask you to direct to Senator Williams, first of all, is what is the statutory authority which allows the state legislature to take this action? To my understanding, there is none. The second question is that relates to his professional position. As far as I can see it, he is operated as a consultant to the telecom industry, and he has received significant contributions from telecom interests, and those would potentially benefit from this action. And the third is that he is actually, the question for him is, why is it that your action here is antithetical to your campaign statements of the goals of your campaign, which is very specifically to create good-paying jobs and grow the economy? That is diametrically opposed to this proposed action. So I would like to have the commission ask him those very specific questions.
Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
Just very briefly, sir, I can
Yes.
answer at least part of that question, at least how the bill is proposed, is that Chapter 96 of the Kentucky Revised Statute is what Senator Williams bases the authority to be able to provide for this amended legislation.
And what is the sense of that statute?
That statute concerns the governing of municipal utilities, specifically.
So the legislature has the ability to arbitrarily designate how cities operate.
Well, yes, and a lot of things we do. However, and this is no statement about what any of our positions are. In 1942, the Kentucky State Legislature passed a law that said that every community must, and city commission or county must provide for electric and water utilities for their citizens.
Right.
That's where that statute originally came from. The discussion item that I think he will bring up, and others have up to this point, is where does telecom fit into there as a utility? And that, sir, I think is a very good point that you brought up. What authority is there to change that or to allow oversight in that particular position? So,
Right. And your position on this, Commissioner?
I think my position is going to be pretty clear by the end of the meeting.
Could you state that position for us?
I
It's
am.
not, this isn't, we're
Yeah.
not doing that now. We'll
Yeah.
listen to Senator Williams make his presentation and see the draft bill. And,
Thank you.
for the first time. And we'll move on to staff reports.
Our first staff reports, we have Parks Director Sean Pickens to present on the youth sports in the spring.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've got Ashley Coulter with me. She's our new deputy director, sitting right over here. She was hired maybe 4 or 5 months ago now, and she's kind of taking the lead on overseeing our youth sports and our little bit of a transition that we're going through that I'm going to give a real brief update on here. I don't have a lot of details yet. We're still working out all the specific details, and we also won't know a lot of things until we see what our registration numbers are going to be. If our registration numbers stay the same or similar to what we've had historically, we shouldn't have a problem. As you all know, Lakeview at some point will be undergoing renovations, and we use Lakeview heavily for youth softball specifically. And it's also one of our, pretty much our only facility that we use for tournaments. We do use Capitol View some and East Frankfort some for tournaments, but they're mainly held at Lakeview. So that will probably be our biggest, our biggest issue is being able to host tournaments. Capitol View is just not quite set up for especially softball. But as far as youth sports go, for baseball and softball, we're working on a plan now where we're going to shift our youth softball program out of Lakeview, and that will be going to East Frankfort as well as Capitol View. We're also utilizing State Stadium downtown. So that's really our only options, is to just shift out of Lakeview and go to our current parks. We've been looking at and crunching numbers. We're pretty confident we can make it work. Schedules just may be a little more wonky. Schedules may be a little more compressed. and kids may have to play a little bit later than what we normally like to. We try not to play much later than 6:30, 7 o'clock, so we can get the kids home and bed on school nights. But we may have to push time a little bit later, to maybe 7:30 games. We're going to try to avoid that as much as humanly possible, but it just may not be avoidable just with our crunching down in facilities. But we're going to do our best to accommodate the best we can. And we also typically try to stay away from Wednesday nights to play, if at all possible. We do play some on Wednesday nights now, but we may have to play a little more on Wednesday evenings as well. We try to respect folks' Wednesday evenings, but just with the crunch, we may have to play a little more on Wednesdays. So we're working on the details. We're pretty confident we can make it work. This spring, it just may be a little bit of wonky as we go through it. You learn as you go, and but we've got a good team on hand, and we'll make it work. So, yes, ma'am.
With the registration numbers, do you see that they decline because of the cost increases, or have we seen any of that yet?
We've not seen any decline.
Okay.
We haven't taken registration yet for this coming year.
For the next coming year.
That opens up February 1st or late January.
And would there be a scholarship for that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
if people are in need. And one
Yep.
last question. Are we signed up with the city to do Yes Art so that the card can be used for these registrations as well?
Yes.
Okay, that'd
Yes.
be great, just so the community knows that it doesn't have to come out of their pocket.
That's
Their
right.
Yes card can be used for these registration fees.
The Yes card can be used for it. We also have a youth scholarship fund set up with the Bluegrass Community Foundation
Great.
through our foundation. It was just started this year. Miss Polly Coblin, as everybody probably knows, and when she passed away, there was a youth scholarship fund set up in her name. And so there's scholarship funds available in there. There is a process. There's an application. It's relatively short and simple, and just showing a little bit of financial proof, just so we can give those out properly.
Correct.
But we never turn a kid away. So.
Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson?
Is there, would there be a need for significant use of, would alleviate problems if we had more access to Capitol View Park and any upgrades and changes that would need to be made during that time period? During the next 4-ish months that we have?
Yeah, it could alleviate some. Biggest issue with Capitol View is it's set up for adult softball and high school baseball is what it's set up for. So we're going to try to play youth sports on an adult field.
Right.
So that's our biggest issue. So we're going to have to look at using temporary fencing, shifting around our adult softball program and things like that.
But there's a lighting issue.
There is a lighting issue.
That goes beyond that, and I think
Yeah.
we had all kind of agreed that until we got the green light that Capitol View Park was going to be owned by the city, that we wanted to limit the amount of infrastructure costs that we were going to put into that.
Yeah.
And I would just state, perhaps this is the impetus to, go to the finance cabinet and say, those mean people at the county like Squire Tracy, they're forcing us to do something, and we want to make this move a little faster. So
Yeah.
it's just a thought on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we are in the middle of getting quotes now as we speak. The first quote we've received, we've got about 26,000 roughly in lighting repairs that needs to be done currently, just to bring the current lighting back up to par.
Yeah.
That's not putting in new lighting. That's just repairing and just patching what we have now.
Well, that's my concern is safety.
Yeah.
For kids
Yeah.
late at night, and I know there are some corners.
Yeah, Capitol
down there
View
that
it'll be tougher later in the evening. Of course, we get the benefit of the daylight savings time come youth sports time, but with the lighting situation at Capitol View, evening games will be an issue with our current lighting problem, so.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other discussion on this or questions? Thanks for the update.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on our staff reports, we have Assistant City Manager Andrew Hartley to present on the status of the RFP for Parcel A.
Good afternoon. I'm going to try to keep this real brief. The city issued a design build RFP for Parcel A on November 3rd. Bids were due at 2 p.m. December 5th. RFP called for 6 key components: a new hotel, conference and meeting center, a parking structure, a signature restaurant, integration with surrounding infrastructure, and connectivity to downtown Frankfort. We received 1 responsive bid from the Walker Land Company, and we received 1 non-responsive bid after the deadline from Superhost Enterprise. Walker's response did not include a new hotel, but instead relied on a partnership with the Capitol Plaza Hotel, which is being redeveloped by a team member of the design build team, Underhill Associates. The design build team consists of the developer, a construction manager, a team of architects, an engineer, an operator, and a financer. Walker presented 2 options. Option 1 being a 3-story, 36,000 square foot conference center and 300 space parking garage on parcel A, and an adjacent 8,000 square foot pavilion event space. Option 2 would be a 2-story, 50,000 square foot conference center on parcel B and C, which is privately owned, adjacent to the Capitol Plaza Hotel. And included in this proposal was a signature restaurant along Merrow Street. Walker provided an estimated project budget of $66.5 million. The conference center budget itself was $500 a square foot. They quoted a 50,000 square foot facility, so there's a potential. If you did a smaller conference center, there's up to a $10 million reduction. And this is an interpretation of the bid based on the information that I have. The plan is really light on financing details. It is styled as a P3 project, but no information was provided as to the structure of that. If the city wishes to move forward with the RFP, the next steps would be to enter into a phased contract with Walker Land. It would be a pre-construction phase. First thing we would do is develop project pro forma. I think that's probably the most critical element that we're missing here, and that is things like, how's this project going to be paid for? How's it going to pay for itself? What are all the elements that go into building a conference center and hotel space? We would conceptualize and develop what a P3 arrangement looked like, who's responsible for what, who takes what risks. We would do some high-level preliminary design, adjust what the vision looks like, where buildings are placed, that kind of thing. And we would seek capital funding from places like other local governments, the state, any other entities that could contribute to this project. And then the next phases would be design. We would presumably negotiate a guaranteed maximum price contract. This is in the nature of a design build with a construction manager. So there would be essentially a private bid done by the construction manager. And then there would be a construction phase and construction completion. Of course, you don't have to move forward with this. We've sort of satisfied our responsibilities under state procurement law to get this process moving forward. I think what we got was a very purposefully broad overview of what's possible, but there's a whole lot of work that's left if we wanted to move forward with something like this.
Commissioner Waldridge.
Thank you, and I didn't catch the very beginning, but I think overall I've been following up with your emails and things of this particular piece. I'm just not, I don't think I feel comfortable in moving forward with just one. I think this is a big deal for Frankfort. I think this is a prime piece of property that we've wanted for a long time, and we've obtained it, and I just don't think 30 days is appropriate for such a piece of land and what we're looking for. I stated before this went out, I think that we should have waited a little bit longer due to the Capitol Plaza announcement and them trying to add maybe a restaurant or adding more space in the Capitol Plaza area, and what does that look like for convention space, meeting space? Because putting something out for 30 days and then building something that's similar right across the road, almost, I think we need to communicate there to see how much space, maybe 20 to 30,000 they may be adding, that may come up. So do we want to duplicate the same square footage right across the road, or is there something more that our community could really want? Or are we looking, instead of meeting space on that side of the road, a more open space or a venue for concerts or possibly basketball, for us to think about? And I just think that right now it's not something we need to push through. I think if we push this through, we may not get what our community deserves and what we want. So I think with one person and one person turning in a half, I think there may be more interest if we sort of leave it open longer, or just maybe have a meeting with the city commission as a whole to see what we're wanting on that space. What does the community want on that space, and what does it look like? I know we want to leave it sort of broad. You don't want to put a lot of needs in a RFP and sort of block them into what they're doing. It leaves their creativity open if we leave it a little bit more broader, as you've shared. But I just don't think, I don't think that we should move forward with one person or one company. I think that we need to go back to the drawing board and think about this and leave it open, because any company within 30 days, to me, I don't think would give us an example of what they would put over there. I think it needs to be longer. But that's just my opinion. I'm excited, though, for its future.
Commissioner May.
Thanks, Andrew. I too am very excited about the potentials here. What I would be curious about is what the process looks like to reopen the bid, what you would need from us, and kind of how we would move forward, and if Walker's initial proposal would need to be resubmitted, or can that just stay, as a proposal that we've had that we've accepted.
I think we have, with what we have today, we have quite a bit of flexibility to shape whatever project we want. The design build process is meant to provide that flexibility. It's sort of a newer, up and coming method of procurement that not everyone uses. So if we went forward with this RFP, we would be hiring that team of people. It would be locked in with that construction manager, that architect, those financing people, but the vision itself wouldn't necessarily be locked in. If you feel like the response that we received, the competition wasn't enough, you'd scrap it and start over, and you'd do it however you want, really. You could do a more traditional design bid build process where you go out and you hire an architect who does a preliminary set of sketches, does preliminary design, and we vet that, and then we land on an actual set of specifications, and then we bid that out ourselves. That's traditional method of doing it. I think that just from a personal perspective, while I agree that one bid is it's not ideal, that design build method it does have advantages in something like this, where you want someone like a developer or a hotel person or a convention center person to say, here's what's possible, here's what we think is possible. You have a whole lot more flexibility because everybody's working together from day one. So I don't know if that directly answered your question. The possibilities are whatever we want them to be.
Right.
And we're happy to do it however the commission sees fit.
Commissioner Unger.
I think it's really exciting. I briefly looked it over. I feel like I do need to look at it a little bit more in detail. But I do think, we've had this downtown master plan. It shows very similar concepts of what we have seen in this RFP proposal. So I think it's probably something that our community does want. And of course, like you said, with this design build option, it sounds like there's a lot of negotiation, and we can have some of those conversations hopefully, and then really get what we want. So I'm definitely open to discussing this, and I think it's a really great option to work with a group that's already committed to putting money into our downtown in the Capitol Plaza. So I think that's it's exciting, and I'd like to keep the convo going. So thank you.
And a quick question, then a comment, if no one else. So the question is, I think you were touching on it, if they were to build on option 2 and not build not on the parcel A site, build on the private land site behind the existing hotel, there was a line item there for a 50,000 square foot facility, but on the parcel A, it was 36,000 square foot. So, were you talking about the reduction?
Yeah, it's about from my interpretation, that's about a $10 million difference, 500.
So if that were the case, then so the total cost, I mean, we'll see what it is after they do the design, but it would be less than 50 million.
Yeah.
Right. Is that
sounds right? And these are real high level estimates.
Right, very high level. We're just and we're talking about building a convention center here. This is what the community has asked for a while, and that's what I'm not sure everyone's aware that this is something that's being talked about. That here we are already with an RFP and somebody who's bid on it. I think for me, the reason to move forward now is part of the funding for this, I would hope, would come from our partners at the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And next year is the budget year. And there's not one in 2025, the next one's going to be 2026. So the closer we are in terms of specific design, a project, something we can show them at the state level, the better off we're going to be in terms of getting more funding there, because I view this as not the Frankfort Hotel and Conference Center, it's the Commonwealth's Convention Center, and it's something to replace, maybe not all the way what we had, I know, but it's going to be something, and I think that this is the Commonwealth Shared Conference and Convention Center, and now is the time to go ask for that. And the more definitive numbers that we have and specific designs we have, the more likely we're going to be successful in getting some help. Commissioner Thompson.
Andrew, thank you for presenting all of this. I'm looking at the proposal 2, and you had mentioned that proposal 2, which was non-responsive, fully not. Pick and choose.
They were both late, and they didn't provide any kind of financial information.
Right. But you mentioned when you were talking about that, not building on the parcel A site, but building on the private parcels B and C site. So I very well could have missed this. Is that description of some type of arrangement with parcels B and C owners, is that somewhere in this document?
It is not.
Okay, so that is just something we received in communications about.
It's an idea that they've thrown out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Waters.
So I wanted to go back, and I guess I missed that in the first part. I apologize. I have been waiting on a phone call all day. But with that, so when you're mentioning the parcels B and C property, that's just an idea because they know that that land is available.
Correct.
Or it's open for them to do that. And so they just threw it out as part of that, saying, hey, well, if you didn't do it on this side, it's that.
Correct.
Well, that would go back to, I guess, our conversation you and I have had, because, when you look at a hotel and you look at a convention space, yes, we all want it, I want it, our community wants it. But when you look at it on that parcel's A side, that's rather big buildings that's going to block a lot of our view of the river. And if you have a big convention center space, I said that maybe we should, look and talk to the developer of parcels B and C to see if we could put the convention space on that side. So we wouldn't block so much of the river there on that corner, because the community loves the river and we take that in. So that's another, thing that we could, it's an option, but I think that comes out in communication. I think that comes through conversations having with the owner of that piece of land as well as the city, the community, and what we want. But I completely agree, I said that I think the state has to have a big hand in this. financially because they and other administrations have taken our convention center, and I think that they, hold them to the fire. But I think that now with Governor Beshear giving another 4 years, he's been very supportive in the city of Frankfort in supporting us, and I feel that that's going to be a no-brainer for them moving forward, for us to be an actual capital city, and for them to see us as a capital city and put more money into this.
Yeah, I do think the best info that's come out of this is it is a roadmap to ask the right folks for money, and it
definitely.
It's not just a concept anymore. It has some teeth to it.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Thompson?
Just in response to Commissioner Waldridge, I think communication is key. And I know that Commissioner Waldridge has had meetings with some developers in town, and I have too, with those same developers. And quite frankly, I was provided completely different information than what's been thrown out here. In fact, I think the words were, "We're not spending any more money," and so that concerns me that there isn't communication, and at least there's not communication with everyone on this board, and mainly only certain individuals on this board, and that concerns me. It also concerns me that Governor Beshear has been very good to the city of Frankfort. I will acknowledge that, but Governor Beshear is not running for office anymore, and it's there is not an obligation to make the citizens of any community happy at this point, and I don't know even if we'll get our matching funds for the pilot. That's there are things of that nature that have to be taken into consideration. What I'm getting at is if we're going to ask the state for money and discussions, I'd rather have a preliminary discussion about that before we spend $500,000 on a design build, or even $100,000 in schematics that we all know are never the schematics that we end up using. I'll use Frankfurt Vision as one of those. I mean, I understand coming to them and saying, here's our plans, we'd like to be in the budget. But we should at least have a conversation ahead of time and say, is there any interest at all, if we were to do this, for you to put money into it? Because I don't necessarily know that the legislature is going to be real keen on spending $25, $30, $50 million in Frankfurt. It would be a first, and I'm all for first, but I wouldn't bet on that if I was at Keeneland. So that's the thing that I would like to have, an actual conversation with some folks who are some decision makers, whether that's the finance, whether it's the governor's office, what have you. And I think that is something that needs to happen. And I think we also need to find out what are the intents of this unresponsive, are they wanting to spend money? Are they wanting to purchase BNC? Is there a bigger plan that we're not aware of, that's being concocted? I think that's something that we need to look at. So thank you for your thorough analysis of it.
Any other discussion? If not, is this something we want to direct the staff to come to us at a voting meeting to pursue, or would we be ready next week, or is this a January?
I guess it depends on what you want to do next. I mean,
I don't know what the next step would be.
I'll give you my thoughts on the next step. I think no matter what you do moving forward, there's a lot of gaps to be filled in. We could enter into a preliminary sort of a pre-construction contract with these folks and allow them to put together their plan of financing, their pro forma, and see where it goes. And we can. That's why I use the words phased contract, because the idea being we would sort of start with little bites. And we would move forward, and if we get to any part of the contract where we go, this isn't for us, or we can't make this work, then we can end it at that point, rather than committing to everything all at once. I realistically think the only way to move forward, assuming you're staying with this company, is that little bit at a time. And I did speak very briefly with the counsel for the company, and he said it's a 6 to 9 month process to put that plan of financing together. So it was about the extent of our conversation. Was, I really called to ask how much of this can we talk about publicly, and he threw that in there as a. So if you want to move to the next phase, you're looking at, we sit down at a table with them and we ask them what's it cost to do that next phase, and we talk amongst ourselves about who's going to pay for what, and we get more information.
So does anyone have any objection to going to that next phase, provided it's, there would be no out-of-pocket for us and no commitment long-term?
I wouldn't say it'd be no out of pocket.
I don't think that's what he said.
We would be paying for
To
that.
enter into an agreement for them to come up with the financing?
Yeah.
We're
To
gonna pay
come
for
up
their
with a pro
study?
forma to,
Okay.
all the things that go into building something like this, and what do the state incentives look like, what's the probability of getting that kind of funding, having the conversations with our, state legislators, having the conversation with the right folks, and pulling all of that together, and at the same time shaping the vision of the project to make sure that it's what meets your all's needs, and then taking just that next step to what's possible and what isn't. It's a commitment of money, there's no question about it, but it's not $66 million of
Right,
money.
right.
It's- Yeah.
So
Commissioner Thompson?
And we would find out what that amount is and come back to
Okay.
you. We don't have it today, though.
I have a question, maybe either one of you. Has anyone approached the county about their interest in this project? I mean, they have major projects going on. We have major projects going on. All of those projects have to be synchronized and make sense. We can't have 3 pool studies going on at the same time like we recently had. We have to be wise about this, but the county's going to have a significant development going on out in just out by Lake or Silver Lake. Has there been any discussions with the county about? I mean, I don't have a problem with moving on to the next step, but I think the county ought to at least be at the table, because they're gonna be tax beneficiaries of this as well.
Be happy to have those conversations.
Commissioner Waldridge?
not a contractor or developer, but when you're referring to the phase contract and that we could get out at any time in that phase, I'm sure each phase there's a cost.
For sure.
And so let's say we're okay with phase 1 and then we're going into phase 2 and we're not happy. Can the information from phase 1 stay with us to go to another person or another contractor or developer we're looking at? Like, how does that work? Or will the next person we look at have to start all the way back over from phase 1, meaning we would then duplicate services in the phase 1 because we went to another contractor? Am I understanding that
Yeah.
correctly, or am I
Yeah.
asking the right question?
All things are negotiable.
Okay.
The early part of this is going to be a lot of sort of proprietary analysis, so they
Okay.
might have some pushback on that.
Okay.
But you're not going to get a whole lot in terms of design that you'd want
Right.
to. I mean, the information that we gather in terms of whether incentives are available and whether the legislature is going to throw in any money, I mean, that's all information that we'll have.
Right.
So,
Okay. So we're looking more
but
at the
in
information and
terms of
financial.
how they see the facility, for example, paying for itself and what their various factors go into that sort of starts to venture into proprietary area. But we can inquire about that.
So when would you foresee, you said it would be a 6 to 9 month process for gathering that information. When do you see, I know you're still new, and still putting your grasp on everything we have going on, which is a whole lot. when do you foresee that this project should take off, or when we should move to the next step? And are we at that time right now, or could we maybe wait a little bit longer and open it up to see if anybody else would like to submit? And back to what Commissioner May said, and leave this particular person who's already done saying, okay, they're in the process as well, but maybe we should wait till spring and give a little bit more time to see if anyone else is interested, and if not, we can wrap our arms around other projects that are going on then to take this on. What are your thoughts?
Well, realistically, if we're going to move forward with this proposal, I'd recommend that we come back in January. Give us at least a month to sit down and negotiate what it looks like, get a contract, get it legally reviewed, that kind of a thing. I guess I'm going to leave the decision as to whether you all do move forward and whether you decide to bid it back out in your hands, and keep that opinion to myself.
So do you think you could get them here at the January work session?
Possibly.
Is that okay with everyone?
If
Okay. Yep.
if we do that, could we consider having it as a joint city-county meeting?
We can consider it.
I mean, I just can't foresee us moving forward on projects alone when the county is going to, and we're working on a master plan that's 23 years old, so it's like, I think we need to kind of figure out if those things, well, between the two counties and the city, I mean, they're.
Oh, comp plan.
Right. So I think we're trying to just figure out where we go from here. I think if we're going to do that, then I'd ask for that to be a special called meeting and have it with the county. We can do that.
Well, certainly. Yeah, we'll offer that up. Commissioner Waters.
My last question is that, are you saying that we move forward and put this on the work session in January to discuss in just using this particular person, this particular company that has now, or is it possible that during up and through that work session in January, that other people could send complete packets if they were wanting to?
No, the window is closed for responding to the RFP.
Okay, so we can't open back up that window until the work session or right before that work session, or are we looking to speak to the one developer?
I mean, it's what the commission desires to do, but I mean, in terms of the formal procurement process, it has begun and ended.
Right.
If you wanted to do it again, you could rebid it, but yes, if you're talking about moving forward with a vendor that we have the ability to move forward with now, it's these folks.
Are we talking about accepting the second incomplete one and late one as well?
We have not talked about that. I don't know what the legal mechanism for doing so would be, but
I think the only way that we would be able to do that is to have a reopening.
100%, right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I also think it was very, very thin on details. It was mostly just a portfolio of here's who we are, and we really like to be in business.
And it's impressive. I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
And do you think maybe they found out about that RFP a little later, and maybe they were just trying to send something in, just say, hey, we're interested, but we don't have that time because 30 days is pretty short?
I'd be
I've
speculating.
heard from most developers that 30 days is pretty short for such a large. I mean, I've heard that from different people I've sent, information to, and the link out and said, hey, and it's like, it's really short.
Yeah.
Especially if you didn't get them on that first day it went out, and then you're like 15 days in, and like, oh, we don't have time.
Yeah.
It just didn't leave, to me, a whole lot of time for people to find out whether that was the first week or second week to be able to put forth. That's why I would like to ask for the board to open this and leave it open until our work session meeting a little bit longer to see if that would behoove other people to apply. I just think 30 days is really quick for anyone, and for me, it's almost like 30 days and only one person, and I'm not sure when that was submitted. Do you have a date of when that was submitted?
The late one?
No, the one that's being accepted. So was that accepted in the first week when we put it out?
I believe they were both submitted the last day. Yeah.
So we received all of them the last day.
Yeah.
So they had 30 days, but that's just my opinion. I just think, but again, I'm not a developer. I just want what's best.
So let me ask a question. What's the process if we rebid this until the next work session? How hard is this? And
It's really not that hard if we stick to the same terms that were in the original RFQ or RFP.
I think we'd want to keep them the same to keep it fair.
Yes,
But do we
yes.
we keep the one that we've received, all right, that's
Could
in
we-
place
yes.
still, right?
Could we
You're really
allow
talking
that?
about, at that point, an extension
Yes,
of the
of
RFP.
the time
Which-
frame.
I've never seen it done after the fact, but I don't know why we couldn't. There's nothing legally.
I think that we could.
Yeah.
I do have some concerns about the fact that we have spoken tonight
Yes.
about details that were submitted. Now, the portion that it seems like you all are more interested in, unless I'm misreading, is the portion on the private property, which was not responsive to the RFP itself. So, I mean, yes, we can absolutely extend it, but we'll need to review that pretty
To
carefully.
Laura's point, I'm putting myself in the proposer's shoes, and once you've sort of opened it and talked about it publicly, then you're giving anyone else the advantage of that information.
Yes.
And they would have legitimate concerns with that.
So that's kind of a non sequitur, non-starter when it comes to that second one, right?
It's, again, this is new to us. Doing something like this is brand new to us, and I haven't done a full analysis of the legal implications since we have publicly discussed.
Gut level, I wouldn't recommend it.
Gut level.
Gut level
all your-
says no.
All your gut says, there
So,
might be some issues.
For now, we'll come back in January and with the group that we have and see, you can get more information and find out what the next steps are, but then also you can research and see this is something, and even before next week, if it's something, we'll be here next week on Monday. So if we have time for that, I know it's a short turnaround, but if there's anything we can discuss on that or vote on.
And
gives
it
us
starts
some
with
time.
I think it starts with a phone call to them and just see where we go. I'm happy to have that.
Does everyone feel good about that?
Yes.
Okay.
No. Oh, I'm still for the extension, sorry. I just don't feel
I understand.
that this is, I mean, I can't let that go. 30 days, and it's just really hard to get things together. And so even, I think someone had said to my left, maybe that most people do wait till the last minute or the last day to submit a bid. That's fine. But I just don't think I've spoken with people out of state as far as California, Wisconsin, Ohio, and these developers are just like, wow, 30 days, that's a pretty quick turnaround. And these people are building really nice convention space on, when I ask these questions to developers that are not in the surrounding areas, that 30 days is really hard. And some people are like, oh, I would have liked to do that, but now a week is already gone and I'm just finding out about this link, and I just don't think it's had time to be disseminated out to everyone that it could consider this. I'm not saying that the group has submitted, they'd be wonderful. I'm not saying that, and the face by face is great. A great, portion for us to, look forward to, but I really think right now, I think that it should be extended, and I'm for more offers right now. If we're gonna wait till January meeting, why not extend it and allow others a few more weeks? Or wait till the end of January to discuss this, to allow a month and something, allow the company that you have, yes, there's been some things said, allow them to be able to resubmit. If they would like to make any changes to theirs, then please do so, being that there's things that have been discussed here. Allow them that opportunity instead of just holding and keeping them locked in, giving them the same ample time to go back and look at their documents they have submitted in the last 30 days and be able to make changes if they want. But that's just where I'm standing. But again, I'm only one vote, and I'm just trying to make sure that we have options.
We're not voting tonight, but maybe Monday night we can, if you all feel like you can research that in enough time, we can consider that Monday night. If staff can turn that around.
Next week's meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, we're meeting again in a week.
Yes. That's what
Thank you all.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
And that'll take us to discussion items.
First, we have Sister City Representative Bill Marshall.
I need pictures to send to our sister city, so sorry, please indulge me. Thank you all. Wonderful to see you again. We had our visitor from Shimamoto-cho, Osaka-fu, Nihon. That's Shimamoto City in Osaka Prefecture, Japan. He came to visit us a couple of weeks ago, And we knocked it out of the park again. We're 2 for 2 on our Japanese visitors coming to Frankfort. So after the big reset, I guess, following all the shutdown and that stuff from COVID, Shimamoto was very keen to get everything restarted as we were. And so they sent kind of an emissary, if you will, over here, one of their teachers, Takayuki Yokoyama. And so he came and we showed him around, kind of did the tour of the same stuff we did back in 16. Special thanks to Mayor Wilkerson, Commissioner May, and others here. Thank you all so much for being a big part of the welcoming of Taka. And he had a great time. Everything went wonderful. So moving forward, all the planets have kind of lined up in a perfect place, I think, because on both sides of the equation, we are really excited about doing more student exchange, more teacher exchange, and it can also lead to something that we had kind of started to look at pre-COVID, I guess, but in the future, maybe even some economic development opportunities. I'm excited to hear about the convention space coming. I come from the hospitality business many years ago. That's super exciting. I know how important a convention space is to a local economy. We are thinking about, or Shimamoto, I should say, is thinking about holding a whiskey festival event next year around November time. So that might be good timing. It's still way far out there, but, it's important to plan ahead of time as we think about what the opportunities are. And so that might be like a time when we might want to consider, because it's kind of our turn to go there. And so what we've basically done in the past is they come here, we go there. For the most part, we take care of our own expenses and stuff. We haven't had any real official visits, as it were, but in the past, that is how it has been done. However, I will say that I think the moment is here when. Now, neither one, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Mayor Wilkerson, but neither one of our mayors has visited the other, right, in person. And back when we first had the signing ceremony, then Mayor May signed the document. Charmaine was an amazing help with all of that stuff. And then I took it with several folks, and actually we tied it into a trip for the Cabinet for Economic Development was there anyway, and we tied it into that trip, which really turned out to be pretty good, because that way we got a lot of state level and folks around economic development, folks from around the state, to be kind of get that sister city experience, that what you can do with that. And so, that might be something to think about for the, this whiskey festival coming up. I'm sure maybe even Governor Beshear might consider something, like that. Back then on that trip, then Governor Bevin came over for a couple of days right at the end of that visit. So, and just kind of drilling down real quick with the student exchange stuff. What we're looking at is doing something a little more robust in terms of length of time. A lot of the other sister cities, they'll go for a couple of weeks, and that's okay. It's a little bit of exposure, but what we're looking at is more like sending our kids for a semester, which would be about 3.5 months or so. They have trimesters.
For 3.5 months.
Well, yeah, we will get our everybody up to speed on that. He'll have to attend the Japanese language classes that I'm starting at all the schools, and actually I am putting my money where my mouth is. This is my my substitute teacher ID for Frankfort Independent. I'm also in Franklin County, and so that gives me some, for one thing, bless our school teachers. They're working so hard. It's tough. They're having a hard time finding substitutes, just saying. It's not a bad idea to think about it once, a couple days out of the week. But it's really great to be able to be kind of on the inside, and I've had a lot of time to talk to a lot of the leadership at the schools, and they're all very excited about looking to teach Japanese language, because basically what we're going to have to do is get our kids ramped up a little bit with a semester or two ahead of going on a student exchange thing. Everybody everywhere around the world learns English as a second language. We need to be able, we're going to have to do that extra part, okay? So we're working on kind of a basic, must-haves for them to be eligible. I mean, the first kids wouldn't be till probably spring of 25, because it's going to take that long to get everything in place. But we are super excited. We've had, I've also been in some of the classrooms. I've asked some of the kids, a lot of them like Pokemon and anime and stuff like that, and that's an amazing kind of introduction to some things Japanese. And I asked them, and I said, well, would you want to learn Japanese language? And almost all of them are like, yeah, that sounds great. And I'll teach them to count to 10 and stuff, and they love it, So I see strong interest on the inside, too. Moreover, once we get this program going and that sort of thing, now we're creating a very specially trained kind of local workforce, right? So these kids, that's the stuff that Japanese companies would really like to be hiring for. And we can create some career paths for our kids and maybe work in companies that we recruit to come here. And the whole cycle kind of, keeps the kids here working in good jobs, and it's just a total win-win-win, right? So these are just many of the things. I know you guys are super busy and everything, but I want y'all to say a phrase with me. Now I know Kelly's practiced it a few times. Watashi tachi wa kazoku. Ready? Watashi tachi wa kazoku. That is, do you remember what it is?
We are family.
We are family. Yes, very good. So I want to thank you all for your continued support of the Sister Cities program. We're really kicking it to 2.0 and beyond now. We are in the position to set up some programs here that can be also put in place in other cities around Kentucky, so it helps really grow the entire state. So thank you guys so much. Does anybody have any questions by any chance or anything? You guys, Charmaine has my contact information, of course, and if anybody needs anything at any time, please let me know, or any ideas, any kind of inspirations. We are all working together on all of this. So. Yes, ma'am.
Where are your language classes offered right now?
Pardon?
Where are you putting Japanese into which schools?
We would like to be in the middle schools and the high schools.
Okay.
So our biggest challenge right now is finding teachers for Japanese, okay? Japanese language. That's one thing, and you were speaking about a budget year with the state and stuff. That might be, I know a few people up there too, and I'm going to be speaking to some of them about looking at creating hopefully some kind of perhaps funding for Japanese teachers in as many Kentucky schools who would take them. I mean, Kentucky has 200 plus Japanese companies, more than any other state per capita. Our location is probably our strongest thing. It's like all the companies are right here. Anything they manufacture here is a one-day ship to 2/3 of the country, right? So plus they love thoroughbred horses and they love bourbon whiskey. And that doesn't hurt, and basically we check every box. So that's what I was thinking if we kind of go that extra mile of some amazingly enhanced workforce development specifically for these companies, because we know those jobs are out there and future jobs will come, then, I mean, leadership on, fifth gear or whatever, it's like this is something we can do that nobody else is doing. So.
Is it a special meeting if we all go?
Oh, yeah,
It
there
is?
you go.
Okay.
It was just the mayor for 3.5 months. I think we can do that.
That's good information.
Yes,
And
sir.
thanks for your help in bringing Taka here. And I hope you had a great time.
Oh yeah,
He
no, he had a great time, super excited, and they're looking forward to seeing us there, next year. So,
I appreciated the button that he shared. And
Yes,
giving us the-
yeah. He's, they're the best folks in the world. I mean, I just love it over there. It's an amazing place, and I want to share that with especially with our kids, because that opens the world up. It's life changing, and we can do it. So.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all. Arigatou gozaimashita. That means thank you very much.
All right, next we have a discussion of a bill related to the Frankfort Plant Board from Senator Williams.
Senator Williams, are you here? Yes. Welcome back.
Great to be back. Thank you.
You know where to come to the podium.
So I've been here once before. Forgive me.
Thank you very much for having me. I think there's been a lot of perhaps unfounded discussion here on this thing. I do have something that you can pass out to the members. Pass that down.
Ms. Maxwell, can we make sure that makes notes so that everyone can see this
Is
later?
this a summary of the entire bill?
Yeah, that's the legislative summary of the bill. Okay. And that's not the bill, but it's a legislative summary of the bill.
It's not the 13-page bill. That's the summary.
All right.
That's the summary.
Okay.
Well,
You have the floor.
thank you very much. I appreciate y'all having me here. Actually, I'll note the 13-page bill is existing statute, and there's changes to existing statute in that. So a lot of these bills look longer than they actually are. But I'm Senator Jay Williams, and I'm going to read this letter, and then I'll pass it out to y'all later. I was recently elected with over 8,000 votes from Franklin County. No votes were cast for the unelected board members of the special purpose government entity legally named the Electric and Water Plant Board of the City of Frankfort, Kentucky, but commonly marketed as the Frankfort Plant Board. In fact, only about half of FPB, Frankfort Plant Board, ratepayers are even allowed to vote for you all. And the FPB has been running an ad campaign, but they have no basis or mandate to equate our community with telecommunications. That's what we're talking about here, their telecommunications divisions. Our community is not defined by internet service. Our community should be a vibrant riverfront from Kentucky's capital to Buffalo Trace. Our community is not defined by a cable TV service. Our community should be a thriving convention center with visitors from Kentucky and beyond. Our community is not defined by archaic landline service or any of the other services they offer. Our community should be recreation facilities for kids and adults alike, and our community should be strong schools. That's what defines our community, not your internet. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. But let me be clear. I'm adamantly opposed to selling the plant board telecommunications for a bag of money. That is not what this is about. What this is about is those facilities for economic development in the future of Kentucky. I'm a strong advocate of converting this valuable asset, which the leaders of Frankfort before have created, to the vibrant riverfront development, to doing the things that you're talking about right now. If I am going to be able to bring some state money to match your money, we've got to get that money there. I've got to be able to sell a story. This is a story. 20, 30 years from now, our children and grandchildren will be benefiting from a convention center, a riverfront development, or a recreation facility. And internet, who cares? It'll be everywhere. And it'll look very different.
Excuse me, keep it down. We're trying to listen to what the senator has to say.
I'm called an outsider, but 8,123 voters, ratepayers of the plant board, elected me to rein in runaway, unelected special government entities like the Frankfort Plant Board. Actually, Adam Edelin authorized a report back in 2012 about special purpose government entities, okay? Started audits, doing a lot of things. And one of the things he was concerned about is a lot of these special purpose government entities were essentially independent of the elected officials that created them. There's a reason why in over 80 years, this statute, this 13-page statute that I'm changing, in over 80 years, has not been adopted by any other city commission in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. No other city's unelected boards have, I'm going to quote, this is from the statute, the authority to perform any act not repugnant to law, that's KRS 96-175, and keep all monies deposited to the credit of the board separate from all other municipal funds, KRS 96-181, and the sole discretion to use, apply, and pledge all or part of such surplus revenues. That is what no other municipal council in the state has given one of their utilities the authority to do. Every other municipal authority, the commissioners decide what to do with the surplus. The surplus goes into the city's checking account, doesn't remain over here. And the Frankfort Plant Board is the only electric special purpose government entity in the state that is not regulated by either the Federal Energy Regulation Commission, FERC, or the Kentucky Public Service Commission, Kentucky PSC. That's why half their ratepayers have nowhere to complain other than the entity they're complaining against, if there's a complaint. And so I'm basically, this bill, what it's proposing, is to give the city's elected commission, sorry, yeah, I keep doing that. Give the city's elected commission the same authority as every other city commission in Kentucky, and that all Frankfort Plant Board ratepayers be protected by the Kentucky Public Service Commission, like most other electric utility ratepayers in the state. The other thing is that members have come to me and asked that the state start paying fee in lieu of taxes for the property here. The plant board is authorized by statute to pay fees in lieu of taxes for the schools and to the city commission. And as far as I know, they have never done this. So they talk about what a good job they do for the schools, but in reality, they've been shorting the schools millions of dollars over the lifetime of the plant board. And how can I ask the state to pay fee in lieu of taxes, which I'm for, and which I will do? But it'll be a hard story to sell when the Frankfort Plant Board isn't paying the fees in lieu of taxes to the schools or you. And this isn't a reflection on the dedicated and hardworking FPB workers. They have built a tremendous asset. But it's a consequence of unelected and unaccountable management confusing its self-interest with our community's best interest. Our internet is not our community. While previous boards acted in conjunction with elected community leaders, the current board is spending ratepayer money hiring expensive lobbyists to strong-arm our community's elected officials. In my opinion, a lobbying campaign is not a KRS 58.010 public project. In my opinion, the FPB running an expensive ad campaign and hiring lobbyists using ratepayer money without the approval of elected leaders, you all, is highly questionable. If you were to approve it, that's fine. You can hire lobbyists, you can do what you want to. Them doing it from ratepayer money or from a surplus without your approval, that's questionable to me. I requested a meeting with each Frankfort Plant Board member to discuss my legislation, but the Plant Board replied with a letter from their attorney, basically saying no with individual meetings. I'm renewing that request to meet individually and further requesting time at a public meeting to discuss the details of this proposed legislation. In that presentation, I will address each of the 12, I'm going to call them mostly ridiculous, they're all ridiculous assertions, and other self-serving claims by the Plant Board chairman. I'm deeply committed to the long-term success of Frankfort and Franklin County. Repurposing the Plant Board's telecommunication assets to revitalize Frankfort's economic development and improve the lives of our community members for the next century will honor the efforts of all those who went before us. Those that set up the Plant Board were businessmen. They got in front of the wave of technology, and they knew it. They did a great thing. They built a tremendous asset. The Plant Board was tremendous. But with technology, you make your money from capital gains. You have a capital asset that, if it remains for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, will be really undervalued in terms of its return. You're going to have a very small ROI from internet. But if you take and convert that into a capital asset that's going to help you do the things we were just talking about, help you tell a story to get the state to invest with Frankfort for the future, for convention center, recreation facilities, riverfront development. That is what we're about. And finally, I want to say is in your packet, and I'm going to read this, and I'm going to go over the bill shortly. But in your packet, you have it's pretty interesting. Back in 1792, that's what a resolution looks like. Okay, it's a handwritten piece of paper. It says, essentially, it's what authorized the state to buy some property here to make Frankfort the capital of Kentucky. And they're calling me an outsider, but I got two of my great-granddads that voted on that resolution. One of them, Colonel Thomas Lewis, was Frankfort's judge executive when they were in Fayette County as part of Virginia. He became Bourbon County's first representative. And the other one, Colonel Robert Johnson, he was the first senator from Franklin in 1792. So I feel like I got a lot invested in this community. And a lot of people voted for me because I am concerned about the future of the community. So if there are any questions, I'd like to go through the, there's some line items here. I can go through this item by item and you can ask questions about it. It's one page of changes, and a lot of these changes are a little wordy, but I'm just going to summarize the bill. Yes?
Oh,
Commissioner, do you want to?
are we opening up for questions, or do we want him to go line item? I do have questions.
Okay.
But they may not be into
they
his
related
line
to-
items.
Would it help if he were to read the draft?
I don't think
bill
so.
First, or
Okay. That's fine. I'll take questions.
Okay,
Take
great.
time to take questions.
I can start. Okay,
ahead,
great. I just
Commissioner
have a
Lodge.
couple. First of all, I want to correct you because I understand that you are not from our local area. And your one comment that stands out to me when you said that our internet is not our community, and I beg to differ, because our internet are people that live in our community and they work here and they make salaries. So when you look at it that way, it does affect our community, and it is our community that are working those jobs at a local facility. So I want to correct you on that. So moving forward, when you speak on our behalf, know that our public telecom is our community, and some of those voters may have voted for you. So just keep that in mind, because we want to keep this, it is personal, and we just want to make sure that we correct that. My other question is, let me go back. Sorry, Mayor. Right now in the situation, how many other communities or cities in Kentucky are in the same situation as us? Have the telecom in the community and are over it? How many other cities in Kentucky?
When you say the same situation as
With
you,
our local
you
municipal.
are the only combined electric and water plant board in the state that operates under this. I've been told in terms of municipal utilities, which the plant board is not, okay, that there are about 24 municipal electric utilities and about 12 of them have internet. I've been told that. I can't verify that. That's just what I've been told.
May I follow up? Thank you. So within that, when you're looking at 24 and 12 of them having that, as a senator, I know that you represent your areas, that's your responsibility. But I would think if this is in the best interest of Frankfort, wouldn't you speak to the other senators and the other representatives that represent the other 12 areas and be able to do this together? And why are they not agreeing with you to do that? Because I know right now, as we're sitting here live on Facebook, there's other communities that are watching to see what happens because they feel like they're going to be next. So they are watching, and this is something I'm bringing up to the KLC meeting this Friday. The mayor and I will be sitting on and discussing that with other cities. So why would you just focus on Frankfort if this is the best thing for Frankfort for us to move forward? Why wouldn't you talk to other people to see why not add them all together?
Well,
and moving forward.
Those others are all under municipal city home rule, not under special purpose government entities. And actually what this bill does, and mostly allows you to run the internet, nothing's forcing a sale here.
Right.
Allows you to run the telecommunication just like every one of those. Okay? They can run everyone just like that. Okay? So that's what it does. So nothing forces you to do that. But as an SPGE, they all have rights as city commissioners that you don't have. And you're telling me I don't want to do what the rest of the city commissioners in the Commonwealth can do regarding their telecommunication facility? I'm not going to stop you from being like everybody else, but I am empowering you to be like everybody else.
So when you mention the home rule, which I'm glad you brought that up, that puts us in a bind of point A to point B of when we have time to respond to you on whether or not we want to do that. Is that something you changed in your line item? Of how long would our decision for us to make it? Okay.
So let me just start out.
Okay.
This is a beginning discussion point, okay? You get bills out, the ending bill won't look just like this. Okay. I would have loved to have the ability to sit down and talk with a few more people one-on-one, but this is just, most of what's been put out has been put out without even seeing this bill, okay? And so most of it's just hearsay. But one of the things that this bill, I believe, will change is the timelines and the dates. Number one, it does not force any sale, okay, ever. What it does is it sets a date for the telecommunications. It outlines is the date at what any other, what they call public project under here that's not water and electric, because it's a water and electric board. It sets a date at which it needs to be audited and determine what the value is. And then you have a time period after that. My intention is to make the next council, the one, not you, that you all won't have any decisions that you need to make here. I mean, you can oppose it, you can be in favor of it, you won't have to make any decisions. The next council, what they will get is they'll get a valuation on the telecommunication, not the plant board, not the water and electric, but on the telecommunications, they will get a valuation. And then you will decide, not you, the next council will decide whether they want to take the money and convert it into a convention center or riverfront development or not. Okay? That's what is in here. Yes.
Does anyone else have a question? Commissioner Roberts?
Okay, great. So I had questions that were passed down, so I stopped them, so I'll just ask. Question number one What is the statute which grants the state legislator the authority to require businesses authorized by local governments to cease operation?
What?
I'm just reading the questions that was given to me.
Okay. So if you're referring to, how about if I walk through these item by item, and then you're getting into specific questions, I will come back to that, okay?
Okay.
One thing I do want to point out that we do get some money from the plant board every year. I don't know if we call it a pilot, but they do give us some compensation. And I don't know how we put that in the line item, but we get something from them every year. Now, I don't know if they give anything to the schools.
It's my understanding they do not give anything to the schools. Okay. So let me just run through this real quick, and then you can follow up. And
Sure.
maybe,
And
I think that question will fall out as I'm talking about
We'll
these.
give it a try.
And then you can work on some others. So there's a number of bullet points. Number one, since nobody in over 80 years, really 1 and 2, have adopted this, it just takes it out. Nobody else is going to adopt it. So we'll just leave it as. And actually, there are already special purpose government entities, and make sure it's clear that. So we take out their authority to do anything in 175. So they can still actually, the way that section reads is they can do anything, and they can also run an electric and plant board. So this just says they're an electric and plant board, okay? And that the property is already in the city's name. It just gives the city council the ability to control property they already own. So you can go out and look at it. And then it would require them to pay ad valorem taxes to the school district, county, and municipality, because a great deal of them's in the county. That's an addition here. It would amend 182, and that's what I just talked about the valuation of any public projects and this is what will change to go next year. And then I think what you're addressing here is amending 183 to remove the procedure for terminating the operation of the management. If you read that, it sounds a little funky, but what it does is it simply changes the termination of the plant board to be almost identical to what Adam Edlin, as Auditor Edlin, recommended back in 2012, and in fact consistent with what every other or what the other boards under 96 can do. It gives you giving you the authority to do what everybody else can do. And amends 184 to make the issuance of revenue bonds. You have to approve them, so they can't go out and do $20 million of bonding on what you own without your approval. Again, it's not to management. 185. Make sure that they identify all the assets that are public projects that are not associated with water and electric as public projects, and that's where they get the value. And essentially, this is just, I think, really a technical thing. Is everything else is common language. You got 60 days when you're issuing bonds or when you're doing things. It just now everybody else says you got to publish. It's 60 days after publishing, so you can't have some meeting that nobody attends, do bonds, and then all of a sudden 60 days later it's done. This is just, again, a consistency with other 96 sections, okay? So that's really what it does, okay? So I'm open to, let's revisit your questions on that.
Any others before Commissioner Waldridge asks the question? Go ahead, Commissioner Waldridge.
Sure. Isn't it true that you have operated as a consult to the telecom industry and have received significant contributions from telecom interests which would potentially benefit from such divestiture?
Divestiture.
Yeah, divestiture.
So one of the reasons I'm passionate about this is because I have been in the communication business, okay? And I know how it works.
Okay.
But I have not received.
No, let's let her, we're here to listen, we're here to listen.
I have
It's
not,
a public hearing, it's a
to my
public
knowledge,
meeting.
received significant contributions from any of them on that. I mean, I don't know that I did. I can go back and look. Do you know how much I got from somebody in the telecom? I don't.
$1,000. I looked.
You
got $1,000. There you go.
I got $1,000 out of.
Under the table.
I did not get anything under the table, and $1,000. Okay, that's it. I got $1,000 out of the 150,000 I raised. It's not going to influence what I do.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And the reason I'm asking these questions because you were not present earlier in the meeting when we had comments from the community, so I'm reading their questions. So, question 3, you have stated that primary goal of your campaign, in your words, create a good paying job and grow the economy. Wouldn't this proposed measure throw hundreds of people out of work, exactly the opposite of what your campaign promised?
Actually, that's not true. One of the reasons I wasn't here earlier
What's
is
not true?
It's not true that it's going to throw people out of work. Absolutely not true. Number one, it's not hundreds. I'm talking about telecommunications. And I'm thinking we're talking about 50, whatever. 70, that's fine. But one of the reasons I was not here earlier is I chair the technology committee it's a statutory committee, and we had hearings on broadband. And we're talking about attachments, this very industry. That's why I'm saying I am involved in this industry from regulatory. The number one problem with the industry we're going to have in the next 5 years is not money. We got all sorts of money coming in. It is people to do the work. And so those people are in demand. They are going to have jobs, and they're going to have good jobs. And once this really almost $2 billion is spent in their industry where they're going to be hired to really put it up and do it, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of additional customers that are still going to need support. So if I am a company, I had 2 sets of installers they both said, hey, our problem is getting people to do this work. Somebody might offer to buy the telecommunication. The people are more important than the physical plant. The physical plant's getting paid for it. Finding people to do the work that we're going to have to do in the next 5 years is a critical path. So that's why they will have jobs. I know they will have jobs because I've been in this industry, and they will have multiple job offers and going forward in the future. So, no, and quite likely, whoever buys them is going to keep them on in the same job here, okay? I mean, it's not like you can buy some, they have nobody else to bring in. It's your people, your community that will be working for this. And there is good jobs in this industry. It's not like this industry is dying. This industry is going to be a very thriving industry, and it's going to be a tight job market, which means you're going to be able to demand a lot if you have the skills and the certifications to do what they need in telecom.
My question. So you're not forcing a sale on the telecom in this bill?
Not
You're
forcing a
forcing
sale.
a valuation after how long? Is that what you're just going to require that?
So the valuation would, I think, we're going to talk about how this language changes. Right now it's a little bit early. So I'm thinking you've got an audit that's due in June of next year, but there's a valuation that would give it 6 months, so not the next calendar year. The end of the next calendar year is when that valuation would be done. Then you would have some period of time after that to decide what to do with the plant board. You could either...
In the bill, it would give us a period of time. So this would kick the decision over to the commission rather than with the existing board of the plant board, right?
Yeah, this is going to make
sale.
only for the public projects, of which telecom is a public project. It's not a water or electric project. Okay, only for and we're not going to value the water and electric. I'm not talking about that, okay? We're talking about the public projects, of which telecom is one. That would be valued, and then the next council, once we change this, would make that decision. I mean, I'm thinking that's the only fair thing to do because none of you realized this was going to be an issue when you got elected. And we're just going to have some time to take a look at it and deal with it.
And, okay, so what the bill says is we take that authority from the plant board, give it to the commission. In the future, would a future commission have the ability to sell the electric and water on a 3 vote?
So, not on. So what the language is in here, I just used language that was what other city commissions have, and the report of Adam Edlin, Auditor Edlin's report. That is what is reflected. That language is already in statute for everybody else in 96. Now, if you don't want to have the authority that every other city commission in the state has, I'm willing to listen. That's not one of my big things. But every other city commission in the state operates upon the language that was put into this bill. And that was the recommendation of Adam Edlin when he did his audit of SPGE. So it's not something I don't like to invent things. It's what's already there. But quite frankly, I have no problem. If this city commission says, hey, we want to be the only commission in the state that doesn't follow this other language, I'm open. That's part of what we're discussing.
Okay, well, one more question, and then I'll.
Oh, sure.
On the CERS, so if a private company did buy out the telecom, one of the concerns is what happens to the employees that are in the retirement system. How would they be affected on something like this?
So CERS and KERS operate very differently in this regard. If you're in, and this is from, I talked to the experts on the public pension boards, the guys that write the language. With KERS, the agency would have been responsible for that ongoing liability. But with CERS, they decided to do it differently than KERS. With CERS, what they do, if you have jobs that go away for one reason or the other, or if you sell a portion of your company, or you just decide, I don't want to do this anymore, this job, that's spread across the entire CERS. So what would actually happen is that the liability, if let's say we had 70 employees go to the whatever company they bought them, that liability would come off of the plant board and the city's books. That's the way CERS works. It would not remain a liability at all. So in essence, you would be clearing the city of a liability, but the whole system would then ensure that that liability is funded. And the legislature is doing a lot of work to ensure that the pension system remains solvent. So because of what the legislature has done, the city and the plant board would not have that liability, but the legislature in CERS is, and quite frankly, what they've told me is 70 employees across the CERS, they can't even quantify it. It's so small. I mean, it's like decimal points over here in terms of the actual liability compared to what the liability of CERS is. So there is not a concern that it's going to have any impact upon CERS whatsoever, or any impact upon the legislature's ability to fund those liabilities. But it would remove that liability from the city and the plant board.
But that liability, the funding of that for those 70 employees it would come out of the pocket of the acquiring company, and it would reduce the amount that potentially.
I do not believe that's the case. It's not going to come across. It will not come across that liability. That money will not come out of their pocket. It will be distributed across CERS over the next 25 years, and we can sit down with the pension people, and they can explain this and make it clear that it will have a negligible impact upon, because it's so few employees compared to the entire CERS employees that are retired or out there, doesn't have an impact. And so if they buy that, that liability would come into your coffers for doing a recreation facility or a convention center or economic development along the riverfront. If it's $30 million, if that's what the liability is, they're going to pay you, and you're going to keep it and the CERS will absorb that liability across the whole system, which is, as they told me, it's just it's not even a rounding error. It's way over here. Such a small percentage of the system's employees.
Commissioner Thompson.
Senator Williams, thank you for being here. I want to get in the weeds just a little bit, if you don't mind. This particular language in KRS 96 that affected the plant board was originally enacted in what year?
1942.
Okay, which happens to be the year before the plant board was purchased by its original owner, correct?
I presume so. I'm not sure when it was originally. But I will say, around that time, there's a number of statutes that were enacted regarding water and electric.
And originally, the act dealt with the classes of cities and how they would be affected with this, but the gist of this was that the citizens of Kentucky would be provided with water and electric, correct?
It's a combined water and electric board.
Right. So, but there's nothing in 96, at least in 1942, that presumed that we would have something called the internet or telecommunications services that would be fiber optic. And
I think they barely knew what TV was, much less cable and internet
very much
and all
the
that stuff.
Jetsons and things. So is it your position that anything that would fall outside of municipal water and electric falls under that SPGE and would therefore be a special project regardless of what it is, whether we're talking about home security or we're talking about internet or whatever we're talking about? Anything? I mean, if they started offering, I don't know, shuttle rides, I mean, whatever it is.
So I'm just beginning to learn about what this is. When I look at this statute, it says water and electric, they control it, okay? No questions whatsoever. Now, with their surplus, they can have the sole authority back here to decide what to do with the surplus. They might give it to you, okay? But they have the sole authority. However, you have to approve it. So I don't understand, and again, I'm a wonk guy, okay? They can do public projects that are under 58.010 only after you approve it. But I'm not sure that approving surplus for a public project back in 77 or 99 or whenever they did it absolves them of the responsibility of each and every year when that surplus is coming from this public project. And really, this is an operation. I mean, when I think of a public project, I think you put up a statue, you build something. That's really what's a public project. We now have an operation that is generating a surplus. And every year, I mean, you have lists, there's like 8 things that they got to do first, okay? They got to pay their bonds, they got to do this, da-da-da-da-da. Once they get down to the bottom and there's something left over, I don't know how they get around having you all okay what they want to do with it. You can't decide what to do with it.
Well, and I think they do because some commission chose at some point to go under that specific legislation to give up that. I mean, you can call it give up control or, allow the board to handle the control. But at some point there was a decision made, correct, sir? That the city commission.
Hold on, Spectrum's calling.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. Spectrum or Charter or whatever their name is now is not calling. Okay.
But some city commission voted to be that one entity, correct?
I haven't seen that. I've been told that. Okay.
Well, I mean, they wouldn't be in that category unless there was some action by the
in
city.
In 42, you voted to become under 96.171 to 188. Yes, that was done.
No other city in the last 81 years has done that.
No other city has ever done that. Okay.
Bardstown just agreed to sell their telecommunications.
I have no idea about that.
Okay, and I think Henderson voted 5-0 to not sell their telecommunications. I'm just, but again, we wouldn't even have that, we don't even have that ability to even know what they, what that surplus is and approve it until it's a public record after the fact, correct?
Well, the question is, I mean, you see the audits, they've been
Sure.
audited, they've been compliant. I don't know, they have a surplus, they're spending on different things.
Right.
So if they have a public project, like, you know, cable TV is one thing, internet is something else. Getting into the security business is something else, getting into telephone is something. So it seems to me like what happened is we had to vote sometime to buy a cable TV station or vote sometime to get an internet, and that just means they can do whatever they want to. But these public projects are, this is what happened was pretty much back in 42, everything was regulated. Okay, we had regulations. We had AT&T in the 70s and 80s. We had a consent decree because they were a monopoly. Okay, and so we operated under that consent decree, which actually created regulated competition. I mean, water and electric, they're not competitive. I mean, nobody's going to lay a water line down next to another water line or put power lines up there. They are government monopolies. And quite frankly, water is how a city makes a lot of money usually on that. That's one of their primary sources of revenue. Electric's a good source of revenue too. But with telecom, we had this sort of regulated monopoly, and then about 10 years ago, the consent decree went away. And when the consent decree went away, as a nation, we decided that telecom was going to be competitive. And that meant anybody can overrun you. The plant board, anybody, I got a communication space on these, in the testimony today. We have the communication space. Most of those have 2 or 3 wires up there. Maybe AT&T, maybe a cable, maybe another provider. That communication space is big enough on all of these poles to handle multiple competitive. And as a nation, we decided that was the best thing to do.
And as a city commission, with regard to specifically internet, we agreed in the same manner in passing a franchise allowance fee and license that people could receive if they wanted to provide internet services. So I think for somebody who doesn't like regulation, I think I like the markets to be able to control that. I think we're already seeing that now. You and I have talked about this at length, and I understand the infrastructure itself is what they have built, and the infrastructure itself is what may have value and what I think anybody would ever be looking at. Nobody's looking to buy our customer base. They're looking to buy an infrastructure.
No, that's not right. The way these things get sold these days is by your customer base. They're going to see how many customers you have, and they get sold generally on it, because there's all sorts of infrastructure out there, different generations, different whatever. The infrastructure changes all the time. What you have is a customer base that pays us so much a year, and so you're going to get bought based upon the number of customers you have at a certain price. Okay, the price per customer that somebody will bid on you is going down. And the reason it's going down is because of the competition. 5G, when I'm dealing with a cable company, okay, or even an internet, because 5G, everybody talks about 5G and wireless being out for the rural areas. That's not what 5G is for. 5G is for the city core, because they're going to put up a 5G every other block, okay? And that's not really a tower like we think. It's just like a $50,000 to $100,000 base station. They put it up, and they're already coring out your number of subscribers. And it's going to be, they're going to get a certain number because it's not TVs. You get this. Everybody's going to streaming, not cable. Okay, so the cable industry is changing, and really the cable industry is going away, and internet streaming is what the next generation. So as you lose customers, which is likely to happen because you got AT&T in here, And you actually, when you look up, you got 12 providers. Some of them are real providers, some of them aren't. As your businesses get cored out by people who are providing just business-to-business communication, that's happening as well. Your customer's going to go down. So I don't believe that the plant board will be worth any more in the future than it is today.
From a dollars and cents standpoint, but that's exact. You answered my question. I asked it in that particular manner because competition's already here. It's going to drive the prices that we pay for. It already has with fiber and things of that nature. I can remember just a couple of years ago what fiber was, and you're right. It will drive down the value of what we could sell off our customer base for, but that value is going down per person already nationwide. And so I understand that it's a act now, or we may not have the same value later, but it's not going to have the same value in a year. I mean, I would imagine it won't have the same value at the time you pass this bill, right?
So it's changing. It's a dynamic marketplace. One thing I can tell you is the revenues from the plant board, the last audit in 2022, they had $150,000 less in revenue than they did the year before. Now, that happened one time before, like a long time ago. There could be all sorts of reasons for it. But in general, cable, we're expanding, and we're going to see an expansion because we're adding customers and we're doing the broadband expansion. But over the long term, you're going to see a flattening of the revenue, customer growth, and probably a flattening of revenues. Now, some of this revenue, it's like right now, the reason people are going for cable, if I have a cable company and I'm a cable subscriber, I got to pay for Lexington and Louisville's broadcast networks. And that's one of the reasons why your rates are so high from there. But if I'm streaming, getting it over my Roku TV or my Fire Stick, and I'm just streaming, I don't have to pay for that mandated fee to the broadcast people. And that's where we're going, to streaming instead of the old FCC sort of quasi-competitive regulation.
I will say with that direct knowledge that I think the plant board is evolving based upon what you have just said. I have no problem with having a knowledge base of what the plant board is doing. I said this last night in an interview. I trust the people who are at the plant board. I think they're phenomenal people who are at the top. That could change. It could change in local government too. You could have people that don't know what they're doing with finances and things of that nature as well, and that could be a problem as well. It's always a human issue that comes into play. But that being said, I'm interested to see how the negotiations of this bill come along, and I hope that you will be transparent, because you've always been transparent with me about this bill either standing on its own or at least being related to a bill that is quasi-related to the internet business, and we don't have this bill sneaking into a,
Yes, and let me say this, is the one reason that it even talked about the plant board and got the water and electric is because initially when I approached people, the response from the plant board is, we can't sell to communication without you guys getting rid of the whole, getting rid of the whole thing. Okay, that's what they came back with. Okay, so this is really a response to say, well, no, I think you can. Okay, but if you're gonna say we're gonna have to make a choice on it's all or nothing, I don't think it's all or nothing. Then you're gonna have the same power and authority and responsibility as every other city commission in the state. I mean, why should you be the only city commission that doesn't follow, Commissioner Auditor Edelin's recommendations and what's in the other parts of 96?
We're unique in a lot of ways.
What?
We're unique in a lot of ways.
Well, yes, but when I was here in the 1990s, I came down to an exciting, vibrant community. Okay, I loved it. I loved the people. I loved the downtown. I loved what was going on. And I come back now to a vacant lot The YMCA, where I used to work out every day, is done, and the riverfront needs development. I believe Frankfort can be the crown jewel. I can believe it can be what it is, but we need to invest. I need to have a story to tell to the legislature to help invest in this community. I know you all are working on it. I know that's what this project was back, and I want to support that because I really think Frankfort's best days are ahead of us. Quite frankly, I do believe that the internet as a long-term business is not something. I'm in technology. I've been in technology. I've got MS and EE. I've been involved in all this stuff. You see, the founders before saw the technology wave coming, and that's how you make money. You see the wave, you get on the wave, you ride the wave, and then you cash out before it crashes. Okay, and what's happening is the internet as a technology is changing rapidly. You're going to have to reinvest again. Cable business is gone. What they invested in, what you authorized back in the cable industry, that industry is on its way to not existing. A decade from now, when you say cable, some kid's going to pick up a wire and say, "Is this a cable?" They don't have. I mean, that's the way it's going. Probably it'll last longer than that. I'm talking a little bit more, but we need to use our value. This is a great time because these workers have a job demand that is significant on that they will be able to realize a career in internet as they transition to it. But as a cable business, it's changing rapidly.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Well, we said we were going to keep you for 20 minutes, and we went over.
Yeah, let me make one other statement too. I don't like underground things, so that you address me getting money, $1,000. You address me. I don't know. I was told by a reporter that Commissioner Waldridge said I told her that my son works for Spectrum or Charter. That's a rumor that's going around. I said, that is absolutely, positively not true. My boys are in technology. I'm in technology. None of them work for Charter or Spectrum or any communication company. None of them ever have worked for a communication company. And though they're in technology, they're in very different fields. It's a broad field. None of them are likely to ever work for a technology company. So, Commissioner Waldridge, I know that you told that reporter.
I sure did.
Because he told me when you lie to him, your confidentiality goes away.
Well, you have to be very honest in what a lie is, or whether or not you as a politician said what I needed to say, because I would repeat our communication that was just between you and I. So it's between you and I, not this community, on what you really said. And that is what you said. As to whether or not it's true or false, I don't know your family, because I asked you that question because I had community people asking me. That was your response. Now, whether or not you want to say that was your response and go back and forth and feed me a lie, that could be the politician in you. I'm not sure. And as I stated with that particular person, I stand by what I said, because I don't ever say what is not said to me. And I will also say that in this is, yes, I also said in that interview that I don't know if I trust your intentions, that this is the best for Frankfort, or if this is the best for you in the back door to be able to get a payment from any other company or Spectrum or AT&T or any other place. So I stand by what I said, and between you and I, you can stand here and say that I lied, but I actually repeated your words. And I would put that on anyone's Bible, and I would put that on anyone's life right now of my own. So between you and I, if you want to have conversations with us, you must tell us the truth, because in that, it's not a closed session meeting. I share everything that I can be transparent with my community.
I can absolutely guarantee. Why would I tell you a lie? That makes absolutely no sense. That's so easily disprovable that my son works for a company they don't work. That just does not make any sense, okay? I'm a reasonable guy. I would not say something that was not the truth and so easily disproven.
Right. You all that's something you all can take up individually outside of this meeting. But is there anything else you want to add, Senator Williams?
So we're going to go through a process. I think I'll be talking to the plant board. I talked to their lobbyists today on this. And my goal, I believe that there will be benefit for the communication members as well as the city from what we're doing, and that this investment of whatever it ends up being will bring more jobs and more economic development to the city, and all of the jobs that are currently in place will remain, and the liability will go away on the pension liability. So I think this is a win-win-win for everybody involved.
We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mayor, I guess to an extent, will we have him back in more discussion? Because he stated that every job would be protected. I just wanted to make sure if that was a lie or if that's something that he could promise.
I can see about that.
Oh, that was a lie. Oh, okay.
No, that's enough. We're moving on. Discussion item number 3.
KCDC Workforce Development Grant discussion, Kimberly Gester.
Are we on the findings?
We're on parcels B and C.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm the wrong one. Sorry, we're on the findings of parcel B and C. That's
We're on
fine.
parcel B.
Sorry, they put you at the end, sorry.
Who's got?
She'll be virtual.
You want to take a 5-minute break? Can we
take a 5
I make a motion to take a 5-minute break.
Second. Go to the restroom. Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion item number 3, findings on the parcel B and C allegations by Commissioner Thompson.
Mayor?
Yep.
If I could, I think you all were pretty clear in the last meeting that you were comfortable waiving confidentiality of the findings of this report, but I really would like for us to take an official motion and vote regarding waiving the confidentiality, as it is a privileged legal document.
Everybody good with that? Okay.
So could someone make a motion to waive confidentiality?
I make a motion to waive confidentiality.
Second.
No, motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? None? Okay.
And the mayor, if I may just give a brief introduction. This is the result of what Lauren Wolf from DBL is here to present as a result of the direction that the board gave to the city to have independent legal counsel take a look at some of the concerns that were raised. And at that direction, we engaged DBL out of Louisville. They have actually an extensive amount of experience in economic development issues and construction contracts. And so they have looked at these concerns, and Ms. Wolf is here to present their findings.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I'll go ahead and I think you would all like me to kind of just do a brief summary. If there's any additional detail you'd like, please let me know as I'm going. I'll just kind of start. We were asked to provide a legal opinion based on. It really stemmed, as you all know, from the October 9th executive session where Commissioner Thompson presented a PowerPoint presentation. So we reviewed that presentation as it relates to the what we all refer to as Parcel A and Parcel B. Or Parcel B and Parcel C, pardon me. And that, as you know, is part of the downtown development project. This is just referring to a small piece. And I mention that because I don't need to tell you all that there is a great deal of background on this entire larger project. However, we did review the state procurement process. We also reviewed the master development agreement from 2021. We reviewed the local participation agreement, the development plan, and the downtown Frankfort master plan. There was also ordinance number 10, 2023. That is the ordinance that related to the transit center and the parking garage bond issuance. And obviously there's been a lot of news coverage as well. We also reviewed 2 videos released by Commissioner Thompson, and those are referenced in the memo, those particular videos. We also talked a lot to city staff. That was really just to get an update on the status of the project, and also, so much of these large economic development projects involve just what I would call routine compliance monitoring. So we did meet with staff to talk about where exactly the project is. And I'm not just talking in terms of the larger development, where it is in the construction and development process, but I'm really talking about activating the TIF and when all those sort of compliance issues really start coming into play from the city's perspective. I won't sort of get into the details of the project background, which I had provided in the memo. I will just provide a brief summary of Commissioner Thompson's issues he raised. A lot of them, and really our conclusion was that most of these concerns are really just issues of policy. So policy issues, and a lot of that is whether it's generally a good deal for the city. How is that? And then also the process of the disposition of the property. That was a state process. It was a state-owned process. So, and the city's only role, as you all know, was that a staff member served on an initial review of the RFP. So from the state is required when it is disposing of property, just like the city has to declare the property surplus, and then it goes through a disposal process. And the state, that was state-owned property, it's a state procurement and real property disposal process. And the city's only role in that process was that there was members of the staff who served on a very initial review. And with the state RFP process, it was they called their first review. So when they open a bid, they called it a pass-fail process. And that was just a really initial review. So did it just meet the very minimum requirements to move forward through an actual analysis? And that was the city's only role, was on that very first, what the state refers to as the pass-fail process. So from a disposition of property standpoint, from that process, so the transfer of the real estate from the state to the city, our opinion is that while I did not see any issues in the procurement process, I didn't analyze it in depth, because that really is it was a state process, and the city would have no legal liability in that regard. Sure, we can do it along the way. I'll defer to you all. Yeah, I was just going to go through the 5 points. I think we sort of summarized commissioners' concern into kind of 5 main categories, and I was just going to go through each one. So we can go through each one. Correct. Yes. You'd have to ask staff.
If it's not the right one.
Oh, okay. So the only area that the city would have any say with regard to the bid process was on this pass-fail, where we had either a member of staff or a representative on the board, and we don't know who that was.
Well, I'm just confirming. 1 second.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'll check.
Okay. So that wasn't one of the questions that you asked staff about that particular issue.
No, I didn't. I remember sort of asking, but Commissioner Johnson, honestly, this really is a state process, and I was asked to do a legal analysis of any potential liability on the part of the city. So whether the state followed the procurement process and the disposition of real property, that doesn't impose any liability on the city, even if they had a staff person who participated in that initial pass-fail review.
I would agree with you, except for that first part where you said they wouldn't even get past the pass-fail portion if they didn't meet certain basic requirements. And I was looking at those requirements, and I'm assuming that you looked at all of the required forms under Exhibit K.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in that it talks about that none of the bidders, that all of the bidders have submitted all the documentation as required in the bid.
Okay.
The entity that you have stated in your document that it happens every once in a while where people create a company and that they can bid on something and then make a new company. This actually required the company or the individual to provide all of their financial records and to also sign this document saying that the entity itself had been in business for a particular portion of time. That was part of the pass-fail process. So if they didn't meet the pass-fail process, and we had somebody on that committee, whether we were the lone no vote or not, I guess my concern is that it should have never even gotten to the next section. I agree this is a state acquisition and requisition and sale, but I think that the affidavits that are attached here, entitled Annual Affidavit for Bidders, Offerers, and Contractors, and it's sworn before a notary, that seems like a pretty important item, especially considering that one of them was about campaign finance laws and that they hadn't violated any. And while the individual bidder had not, if you go to chapter 48, 45A, it talks about conflicts involving bidders and subcontractors in a state bid that would necessarily nullify a bid completely. I think that's not a policy issue. That's we have a fiduciary responsibility to the citizens, and I want to make sure that I'm clear that the reason that I did this, I drew no conclusions. I just stated what the facts were. And so when it came down to each of these things, especially the pass-fail portion, that is, I don't think the elements of 45A, the entire chapter, were met. So I have concerns about that, but I can move on from that particular issue. My second issue with Section 2 is that you state that NFD did not actually enter into any binding agreement until the Commonwealth formally accepted the bid in November 2019. However, under 45A and the competitive bid process, it specifically talks about that you must be qualified at the time of bidding to do business in the state of Kentucky. Now, had Mr. I can't think the owner of the property,
Marty Johnson.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson, had he placed the bid himself, that would have been one thing, but he placed it on behalf of an entity that didn't exist. And going all the way back to my contracts class that was 25 years ago, you have to have the ability to enter into a contract. And if you don't exist as a person, a legal person, I don't know how you get past that. But I know that is the crux of where we go and the remainder of the arguments. I just don't know how we get there where we say, well, this is routine in nature that people place bids and then they create companies. I would never do that. I mean, that's just seems to me like a not being completely forthright. So did you find anything in there that indicated that that all of the requirements of Affidavit K or any of the other documents were provided to the state?
Again, I was solely tasked with analyzing potential liability of the city. And you made the point yourself that, if there was a sole member of the city serving on just that pass fail, that still would not infer any legal liability on the city as to whether the state properly followed its procurement process.
I mean, unless, okay. We can move on. Yeah.
Any other on section 2? Not, yeah, how about section 3?
Section 3, this kind of just generally refers to, and Commissioner Thompson kind of touched on it here, was the developer's business structure. You know, and as noted, well, first of all, in the RFP response, we're talking about New Frankfort Development and then the CRM companies. And, you know, as Commissioner Thompson mentioned, I did mention in the memo, it is common for groups to respond to these RFPs. And then it's not uncommon as it moves through the process for roles to shift. So part of this is that, you know, first of all, our finding is that, you know, these are all, the city, these are really just compliance questions for the city to work through. So again, from a legal liability, I don't believe that there are any legal violations that would incur liability on the city. Now, and it's important to note too that the TIF has not been activated. Once the TIF is activated and there are incremental revenues being received, you know, this is where, and this is one thing I talked to the city about, and I know staff has been working on this, is really getting into place a really streamlined compliance monitoring process. Now, that has obviously been happening all along, but as this development and then the Capitol Plaza development in general of the entire, that whole downtown area really kind of starts to come online from a development standpoint, you know, that I know city staff is really working really hard to work on really defining and really getting an idea of how that ongoing compliance is going to look like. And a lot of this, you know, Commissioner Thompson raised the affidavit requirement. Again, I don't believe that the city is in any violation of any laws here. That affidavit requirement is just a routine compliance matter that the city staff will just continue to monitor and ensure that all developers on any projects are in compliance with.
Yeah.
Would you like me to keep going in any more detail, or are there any questions at this time?
So is there any requirement for the developer to notify us every time that there's an owner, there's a change in the underlying ownership of this LLC? Or if a new member, if a new member is added or subtracted?
There is a requirement that the, now this is the kind of contract, kind of 3 and 4 kind of overlap, but there is a requirement that the city keep them informed, and that the city has a right to request an update. And typically what most sort of counties and cities do is that they just have their kind of ongoing compliance checklist, and this is just kind of part of the routine check-in.
Commissioner Thompson.
Does the I'm reading section 5 here. I want to read it out loud. Commissioner Thompson's claim number 1: former Frankfort Mayor William May's brother-in-law Jeff Qualman was a business partner of NFD organizer Luther M. Johnson. He makes further allegations that he may be partners in unrelated business transactions. Commissioner Thompson claim number 2: in an October 11, 2023 email, Commissioner Thompson alleged that there are conflicts of interest in that Mayor Wilkerson's wife was involved in the Broadway Hotel. This is why I sent you the email to you and Attorney Milam, because you state in there that I made an allegation that Mr. Qualman was a business partner of NFD Organizer and that he may be partners in other related business transactions. And the reason I asked the question if you actually watched the second video is because in the second video, I specifically stated that Jeff Qualman is now a member owner of the property. He's now listed as an owner. After everyone denied that he wasn't, he's now listed, as of the last update, as an owner of parcel B and C. But yet, in your analysis, you say that I made allegations that he was a business partner of Luther Johnson and other unrelated business transactions, and then you go on to state that the city's asked for an ethical review. The city's ethical review dealt with whether Commissioner May could actually have anything to do with the voting. My question is, did you do any analysis of the fact that the mayor at the time, his brother-in-law, was a business partner and now does own part of the company that owns parcels B and C? Was there any analysis of that as a violation of city or state ethics?
Well, as you know, you all received a state, we're receiving an advisory opinion from your ethics board. And so my analysis was very high level, and I need to parse out two kind of somewhat unrelated concepts here. Just first of all, who is an owner of a company? You're referring to looking at an LLC on the Secretary of State's website, and whoever is listed as a member, I have not reviewed any of these companies' operating agreements. I am not aware, the Secretary of State's office will list who is a member. It may not be up to date. It does not actually dictate who actually owns a company. That is a private operating agreement. That is not a matter of a public record. So go ahead.
Okay, so, but I can tell you Jeff Qualman owns this company. He owns a part of this company. He always has. It was always part of the deal. We were told it wasn't. We were told that the mayor hadn't had any contact with him. Was that analysis ever looked at? Because you stated that we have an ethical review of this. The only ethical review dealt with Commissioner Kelly May, and honestly, I don't think Commissioner Kelly May is in any violation. My issue was that in this particular procurement, that potentially there was discussions between someone who is an elected official, a family member who was a business partner of someone and is now not just a business partner of that individual, but is a member of an entirely new company that owns parcels B and C. And that is my question of whether, because you've said a couple times that it's only a state procurement issue, but that seems like a pretty relevant topic. And while we're on it, 45A talks about kickbacks and what a kickback is. And a kickback can simply be a promise to employ someone or contract with them either as a subcontractor or otherwise. I mean, the fact that less than 3 years after this contract was awarded, the subcontractor is now, they're all members of this development group, along with Mr. Qualman. That is a, by definition, prima facie evidence of some form of an agreement that was made between the individuals. I don't know what that agreement was, but it's prima facie evidence to at least look at it. And I'm just wondering if that was ever reviewed, because I'm accused of of just simply saying that Jeff Qualman was a random business partner, and he's not. I mean, he owned the property. And as to the statement that, you know, whatever's on the Secretary of State's website, that website was updated after Attorney Milam asked them for an update of their documentation, and 2 days after I posted the very first video. So that information is 100% correct because it's an amended statement that was filed on October 13th or October 11th. So that's very much up to date and well before your analysis. So I guess my question is, number one, did you fully look into Jeff Qualman? And number two, did you ever look at the idea that there may have been a kickback arrangement between the two of them, which may have started with an elected official in the city, which would give us direct liability?
I'm going to try and take some points here separately. First, are you referring to, when you're referring to kickbacks, and are you referring to the state procurement process?
I am, yes.
Again, my legal opinion is that if there was wrongdoing in the state procurement process, there is no legal liability on the city's part.
Even if it was procured through the process of one elected official working with a relative to provide that bid?
I have zero evidence of that happening.
Wow.
Ms. Wolf, I'm sorry, Kyle, just some understanding, and this has been sort of my stance on it. I understand, you know, there's been issues and questions arise. What I'm gathering and what I have gathered this far is that the issue at hand is not a city perceived issue. That is a state issue. Us as the city are only responsible to what happens after. That would be the transit center and all of that moving forward, which doesn't have anything to do with the allegations at hand. Because even if the mayor himself at that moment, not this mayor, the mayor at that time has a relationship with someone, that would be on him personally and not serving as mayor, because the city of Frankfort was not a part of that bid process. It was a complete state process. It didn't become anything with the city until we decided to write a transit center grant to then help out with that property. At that time, the contract was already, the bid has already went through the state, opened up, saw the bid, and all that's handled. So this would be a state issue versus a city issue. However, I think we're trying to get to where they're wanting to throw this out on the state level so we can have a little bit more control of that property. So would it be a state, we would then have to file an issue with the state saying that they had something to do with that process that maybe was not matching your
Correct.
issues. Did I say that appropriately? And is that sort of correct?
I follow you.
Okay.
You know, standing to challenge a procurement process that is generally held by a taxpayer. That's really where you see, or someone who is a party to a contract. I am not familiar, and quite frankly, I would have to research a local government challenging the state's procurement process. And I really, you know, that's just something we would have to look into. It's just not something you see very often, so.
And Lauren, I guess my stance on this is if another qualified bidder bid $2,000 on this, then that's all they had to do. And this wouldn't be an issue at all. So I think it was fair and square that anybody could have bid on this. One person did.
If they were willing to build
and
parking structure.
They took a chance, and it was probably when they placed the bid, it was probably a very low probability that the parking structure was ever going to get built. but it was worth $1,000 chance for 2 years, an option, and they found a way. City stepped up and went to the federal government and asked for help in building the transit center, and that's where we are today, and I don't see how this pertains to any of it anymore.
Well, I mean,
It's a, we own the land underneath the parking structure now. The parcels B and C are in private hands, and I don't know what you would propose we do with any of this information besides go back and try to get the state to unwind all this.
I will simply just say that I think that a fair analysis of all of our dealings with anyone from the developer, the owner of the property, and so forth should be looked at extremely carefully. I do not believe that they have been honest throughout this entire process. We're not going to unwind the parking structure. I understand that. But the remainder of parcels B and C were sold with one set of expectations. Were they going to ask for the city to take on the building of that? Of course they were, because in the February 2021 meeting that we had, Craig Turner said, we never had any intention of ever spending our own money. And it was going to be paid through either city, local, state, or federal funds. And when you put into the state procurement contract, you have to build a parking structure, and then someone an elected official of that city tells someone, hey, we don't have any bids, throw a $1,000 bid in, and then we'll go to Washington and happen to be the same person and ask for that money. I'm sorry, that just doesn't smell right. And the fact that we just throw our hands up and say, well, if anybody messed up, it was the state. We can't do anything about it. We just issued a $400,000 bill to ourselves annually for this thing, and I don't understand why why our fiduciary duty as the city goes away because the state may have dropped the ball, and I don't know that the state dropped the ball or we did or otherwise, but I think that there are some true ethical issues here, and I think that in fact, I'll just be honest, I think that if you look at 45A and what it talks about with regard to procurement requirements and conflict of interest and public officers and employees involved with that, I think it's a violation of public trust. And I think we as the city should truthfully look into that. And if we're not willing to, then by golly, let the state auditor look into it. Let the attorney general look into it. But that's our duty. And if we're going to just say, we're already building it, nothing we can do, then, once again, we're always going to be taken advantage of. And I don't want that either. So, Ms. Wolf, I do appreciate you looking into this, and this is not in any way adversarial in any way. I am passionate about my hometown. I'm passionate about the folks in my hometown, and I don't like it when it looks like we're taken advantage of. And if I came across that way, I apologize, but I advocate strongly. And so thank you very much for your time and doing the analysis.
Commissioner Roberts, you want to add?
Yes. I just wanted to add, Commissioner Thompson, I agree with a lot of your comments, and I agree where you think certain things happen backhanded. I definitely do, as I spoke on some of these as this happened. But again, I just don't think it's on the city's side to sort of fight that, because that happened and the issue of the transit then came down to the city. So it's not that I disagree with you. I just think that that's a city ethic, a state ethic issue for us to look into on how that procurement was handled and sought out. But I do want to make clear, and I could be wrong, but in the meeting in DC, I will have to speak up for the mayor at that time. He was not present at that meeting in DC that I can recall. It was the city manager, myself, and a few other folks from KCDC and some of the banks in the area. I do not recall that the mayor at the time being present, to start this. Actually, if I recall, when that conversation happened in regards to the transit center, actually the mayor at the time had no clue about the transit center money until the city manager at the time brought it up in a closed session meeting to discuss it. He was actually thrown off by it because he was not aware of all the process that had taken place with that particular money and grant process, and he was actually upset with the city manager at that time, which then kicked forward him getting dismissed in a time. But I just want to clear that up, and because I was sitting at some of those tables and I was in DC. But I do think you have right to know that there's some ethical issues, and I, like earlier, I think it's politics, and I don't think it's the city's right to spend money to push this forward. But I do think I agree with Ms. Wolf that maybe a taxpayer, a ratepayer would want to pursue this toward the state. Then I think that that's justified, and if that helps us in the long run, then that's great. But I just didn't see it as a city's issue because we started the grant process after the bid process, and we were not a part of that. That's my comment.
And any other questions or discussion? I think we've done our due diligence on our side and what we had to do and investigate this and see if there's anything we needed to be aware of. If not, are we good to let Ms. Wolf go? Thank you.
Thank you.
Lauren.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion item number 4.
KCDC Workforce Development Grant discussion. Kimberly Gister.
Hello.
Hello. Quite the meeting we're having tonight. I will try not to block the mic, and I will try to be quick. So I'm here to update you on KCDC's Workforce Development Grant. There's a couple board members here. I want to thank them for their time and for coming out with me tonight. We're all volunteers, and I thank them constantly for their time, commitment, and their patience. We are a public body, as you know, and we do aim to be transparent. Most of our meetings are recorded on Facebook, and the minutes should be available on our website. And if they're not, we're happy to provide those links or documents if you need them. Our next meeting is on Tuesday, December 19th. It'll be held at the Fiscal Court at 12:30. It should be broadcast on the Fiscal Court Facebook page, and as always, all are welcome. In July of 2023, the KCDC was awarded a $440,000 grant through the U.S. Department of Labor's Employment and Training Administration to train 25 Franklin County residents in cybersecurity and place them in full-time paid apprenticeships upon completing the training. All of this would have been at no cost to the student. Unfortunately, at the same time, the employer partner that was going to contract the apprentices announced they were restructuring and could not participate. The grant was put on hold since the apprenticeship was a key part of the program. The search began immediately to find other employer partners. Because of the delay, no money has been withdrawn from this grant. Nothing illegal has been done, not by KCDC, not by our partners, nothing illegal. On a phone call in early November with the federal program officer monitoring this grant, we were told that the KCDC should have followed its own procurement policy to secure a workforce training provider. I presented this information to the KCDC board at the November board meeting, and the board approved a motion to terminate the current memorandum of understanding with our partners. We are developing a plan to move forward, which includes issuing an RFP per KCDC's procurement policy. At the end of the day, all of us on the KCDC board live in Franklin County, and we want the same thing: the opportunity to change the lives of our neighbors through workforce development. The KCDC board is working with the federal program officer to design a program to do just that. I agreed to be on this board because I want to move the local economy forward. This grant is a step in that direction, and the KCDC board has been and remains committed to taking it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Thompson.
There's been a lot of discussion about issues related to Interapt in particular, and that Interapt was profiting, I think is the word that kept getting used, as if the cost of the services that they were providing, I assume everyone thought they were going to be free. Is that the way that the KCDC board as a whole took Interapt's initial involvement, that they were going to profit $55,000 per student? And secondly, is it my understanding from your comment tonight that it was not a violation of federal procurement laws, but was a violation of KCDC's own internal bid structure, procurement structure, I should say? Is that what I'm gathering on those two?
So the second one, there was no federal procurement policy that needed to be followed. It was KCDC's own procurement policy that needed to be followed for the grant.
That's completely counter to everything that has been
It's not. It's
stated.
the only thing I've stated.
Okay, I understand that.
And it's the only thing that's in the TIGO, the letter that outlines how the proposal should be written, which I've since reread.
There, in a letter that we received, or an email we received a couple weeks ago, and then in a email that we received I don't know if it was last night or not when I got to my email, but from a local attorney, it discussed the fact that KCDC members had been notified repeatedly that they were violating the law. I think it was said a couple times, in not going through a competitive bid process. Was there ever a determination either by outside counsel or anyone involved or any legal opinion that led you or any of the other members to believe that there was a violation of procurement laws the KCDC had violated?
I was unaware of KCDC's procurement policy until September 2023.
And if it's a no bid, if it is I'm trying to think of the right word. If it is a personal service contract, does that qualify as still requiring a bid process?
I am going to tell you this is out of my league of expertise.
Okay.
So I have never worked on a federal contract, and despite being a state employee, I don't do this type of work. I offered to help because we were short-staffed.
Sure.
And believe in workforce development and economic development. So I can't answer those questions. In regard to whatever local attorney that you're speaking of, I don't know if I have a copy of that.
It hasn't been sent to you as a board member?
I'm just not sure which one you're referring to.
And Commissioner Iger?
And if there was a letter, if the letter was sent yesterday, that's been referred to our council, and I will not speak to it.
Well, I was just going to say, so if there were issues that the board had with the procurement policy, or the program manager had with the procurement policy, it sounds like KCDC already dissolved the MOA with Interact.
Correct. The current
and
state
is moving forward with, so if there were any issues, I guess, is it a moot point now?
It feels moot to me, but I know several people are still concerned.
No. But how long do you have for this grant?
I would like to look forward.
How long do you have for the grant?
We have through April 2026 to spend the funds. Thank you for asking, which gives us plenty of time to go back and rebid according to KCDC's procurement policy, which we are planning to do. And so we will be working closely with the federal program officer in order to do that with this information.
That was going to be exactly my question. There is time
Lots
to
of time.
implement this
Lots of time.
with the internal KCDC procurement policy. Do it the way it needs to be done.
Yes.
Now that you know there is a policy. So that's good to hear. It sounds like there's plenty of time. And as you said, there's been no federal funds withdrawn or drawn down at all because this was null and void and has to basically be restarted.
Correct. We put the program on hold
Yeah.
as soon as we learned that the employer partner was gone and the apprentices wouldn't be able to be placed. It's such a key part of what we wanted to do, and it's so interesting and I think pretty unique in terms of workforce development, that not having that piece and not being able to fulfill that part, we put the whole thing down until we could make sure that those were guaranteed.
Commissioner Waters?
I just want to make very clear, I've done my research on this project, and it's something that our community needs, and there's several people that are really wanting this. I'm not here to point fingers at whoever's to blame for whatever. My goal is that, like Commissioner Unger said, it is going until 2026, and we still have time. And I've done my research. I've tried to talk to everyone on all sides of this to gather information, and I did speak with InterWrap. And so I spoke with Mary Beth, was her name, and we had it in detail. And some people are challenging InterWrap on whether or not they're viable or what have you. But, the information that I gathered was very positive from InterWrap and them wanting to work with Frankfort. And that they're already working in 38 states. They're even growing in Cleveland. And they already have 20 plus people in Chicago that are benefiting from this program. And everyone is actually buying into this program. It is a model impact program that allows employers to be able to bring people on board who are ready to do what it is they need to do. For me, I also enjoy this program because it's actually teeing up with Kentucky State University. My concern tonight was going to bring up to you that I know the 2026 number is that spring is getting ready to start. So obviously we're not going to be able to start in the spring. Neither here nor there. Everything in the past, we need to keep it in the past. My goal on this and being able to bring this up every few months is it's about economic development. This is when Brad Thomas brought InterWrap to the mayor and talked about us with this to this city commission, it's about economic development. So when I see that and we continue to say that, we can't keep just dwindling in like a hamster in a wheel. We have to get out and do something in order for us to stand by what we wanted and bring in people. And so with that being said, it's going to bring in sustainable wages. It's going to provide home ownership, maybe even for some to be able to up their salary and taxes and everything else. She also stated that, the points were that they want to work with Frankfort. They want this to work. She also pointed out that there are actually other employers right now asking and interested. So for me, even with CVS, they pulled out. We have to get this moving so we can take advantage of those employers, because if we continue, the longer we wait, those employers are like, hey, we're going to have to just go ahead and post on Indeed. This program is a conduit, sort of like Indeed. Instead of them posting on Indeed, we're actually preparing the workforce for them and also giving them sort of career coaches, is the way I gathered from InterWrap. So I think it's a positive program. I think it's running more. For me, I want it to happen. There's so many students, so many people that have asked. So I've been pushing on this. And that's why I said, I'll even help out with the process. I'm a grant person. I don't mind to help out with the process. I just want to get it going. Right now, there could be a possibility that InterWrap, even though InterWrap is out because you've asked for everything and everyone's asked for everything to be on hold, so we can restart the bid process and they could still put in a bid to be that
Absolutely.
Conduit. But the earliest that we could probably start getting Kentucky State University's acceptance would be summer, if they would allow us to start our program in the summer. And it would have to come through to make sure Kentucky State could handle that load in the summer. If not, the latest it would be for the fall semester of 2024. And so with that being said, if it does start in 2024, that gets them through April 26th, which is spring. That's not a full year. But does that still go on as long as we start them before April 26th? Will all of these funds still be able to be there if we start, let's say, fall to the latest, hypothetically? Will the funds still be there for that next year, year and a half? Because you go from 24 to 26, that money will still be there for us to allot this program.
So I can talk to you about how the program was structured.
Okay.
I can't tell you what it will look like going forward.
Okay.
So it was a 12-week training course.
Okay.
And then after that, they would have been placed into those full-time, full benefit salaried positions, apprenticeships. And so if InterWrap were to bid on this RFP when we release it again, we would work with them to figure out how that was going to be developed. And so I can't tell you what it might look like going forward in the future. In the past, that's what the plan originally was. I know that is their working model, is a 12-week training program followed by a full-time apprenticeship for cybersecurity.
Right. And all funds are still where they need to be.
They are.
They are safe and have not been handed out. And if it is our right? Could we have different employers, not just one employer, but maybe multiple employers, as stated in our last meeting, to be able to put people in these positions?
Once we found out that our employer partner had withdrawn, we were talking to multiple employers across, it could be a national search, because we were hoping that these would be remote work positions. And so it didn't, I mean, if they could take 8, we were happy with 8, and then we find somebody else for the others. So there wasn't any requirement that they needed all to take on all 25. It's easier because then you can really design a program to meet the employer needs as well, like tailor some of the exercises perhaps and things like that. So we really do hope once we issue the RFP that Interact and its team will submit a proposal, and then we'll evaluate that going forward. I do want to go back. I missed one thing that Commissioner Thompson asked about, and that was Interact profiting from this grant. Interact received absolutely, as proposed, received absolutely 0 funds through this grant. And the thing it was doing was passing funds through. And so it wasn't making any money off of federal money because it wasn't going to take any federal money off the grant. So I don't know if that's a misperception. Their funds.
Well, it's an accusation. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, that was one of the accusations that was made.
And I think if they do another RFP, maybe there's a delineation there
We'll
between
structure it
the
very
training.
differently.
There's the training portion that gets passed through to whoever that subcontractor, General Assembly, and then Kentucky State. And then now Interact would, once those people are trained, they would work to find those people jobs, and those people aren't required to take those jobs. So if Interact is offering a salary of, let's say, $55,000, maybe who knows what they're charging the other company, but there's, you can be sure they're making a profit on that. But the student is not required to take that job. If there's a better opportunity that pays $80,000, they're free to do that. So I think Interact is, there's 2 parts to this that I think we're getting confused there. That there's I would expect that any company's going to make a profit once they hire the people we've trained, but that's the whole purpose of this, is to get these people trained, and it's a valuable service that any company like Interact would be providing. And I'm not just speaking about Interact, any company that we would partner with in this, they're bringing jobs to us, to our community. They're recruiting jobs for us, and that's something we otherwise would not be able to do. I mean, who else was going to bring CVS Health to Frankfort to do IT jobs? Hopefully we would, but it's just it works to have another company doing that. And better yet, if you get a good relationship with one of these companies, they're going out securing large contracts with these employer partners. And if we have a good relationship, who's to say they don't shave off 20 jobs, 50 jobs periodically to Frankfort, because they've had a great working relationship with Frankfort, and they like our community, and they have good talent here. So that's the bigger picture here that I think is getting lost in some of these, I don't know, in some of the details. So thank you all for at least taking a step back, and let's reboot it. And
I just would like to add, Mayor, as well, as you're saying that, as speaking with Interact, they, with Mayor Beth, I think she's the COO, but don't give me her, I think she's COO. She even, made me feel better about the situation, because she said even Interact does not have to be the conduit to send the money through. Even if we wanted KCDC or whoever to write the checks out to these folks, that the money would not have to come to them to be able to do that. And then I guess my other thing would be, what is the timeline? I think there's a meeting this week in regards to this. What are we looking at the timeline? Because when speaking with Interact, even though that's not, we got to put it out for bid, but they are part of it, and I just wanted more information, we're going to have to re-engage the employers. We're going to have to market this. We're going to have to do another participation evaluation. What is the time frame are we looking at? Do you think we can probably hit this to try to get this completed and maybe do a summer? No later than fall. I know you're like, I know.
I'm in a public meeting.
You are being recorded. No, but I'm excited about it. I think this is going to help our community and everything.
I am thrilled that you guys are on board and supporting this effort, because of course we have had a huge setback, and we do have to start over, and we do want to get this moving as quickly as we possibly can. And so our next scheduled KCDC regular board meeting is on the 19th of December, and we will talk about it for sure at that meeting. And again, I know you can't always make it. I'm happy to answer your calls or questions or emails if you need to. But yeah, I don't know because we haven't, our board, I don't know if anybody's issued an RFP before. So it will take a little bit of work. We may need some guidance from, your team here as well as how that works.
Okay.
Commissioner?
Oh, sorry.
I just want to thank you, Kimberly, for stepping up to be the chair and taking all this on, as well as the other city board members, Clay and Rich. I really appreciate all of your all's time and effort on this. I can't wait to see this launch. So appreciate you all.
We're not delaying. We're not deliberately delaying any of it. We want to move as quickly as we can, but we want to do it right.
And we'll have an update from the federal portion of it, because that's the only portion I've not been able to talk to. I've sort of talked to KCDC.
Sure.
A couple of emails with you, and then now Interwrap, the federal portion
There's a federal
of.
program officer assigned to us.
Okay.
And there is a call with her on Wednesday. And I will present that information to our board. She's interested in knowing what we're doing, and she's, of course, making sure that we're trying to stay in track within the framework of this grant in terms of the timeline and the spending and the requirements and things like that. So she's helping us keep on track. And I will report what she has to say back to our board on our regularly scheduled board meeting.
Commissioner Thompson?
May we have a copy sent to us of the procurement policies and procedures of KCDC?
Yeah.
Thank you. I've tried to get it off the website.
I don't believe it's on there.
Okay.
Any other discussion or questions? And thank you for your time tonight. I know it's a busy day.
It was.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night. We'll move on to the discussion of a tentative agenda for next week. Anything for next week? Remember, next Monday is our voting session, not 2 weeks.
Motion to adjourn.
No.
Oh, we gotta close.
Second.
Yeah.
No, sorry. I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I didn't
We
do
have
that.
to do our.
I have something that I would like to add on to the agenda next week. I've already drafted this, Attorney Milam, and I'll give a copy out to everyone now. I would like for the city to consider a resolution of the city of Frankfort giving unwavering support of the Frankfort Plant Board and its employees and board members. The draft that I have here essentially says, whereas Frankfort Plant Board has been a dedicated and essential provider of utility services to the citizens of the city of Frankfort for exactly 80 years after the purchase and acquisition of Tri-City Utility Company in 1943, and forming the Frankfort Electric, Water, and Plant Board, and whereas the Frankfort Plant Board's employees, staff, and executives have consistently demonstrated a commitment to providing reliable and quality water, electric cable, security systems, and internet services to the community, and whereas the Frankfort Plant Board has shown great leadership and responsibility in managing and maintaining the infrastructure and financial well-being of its organization as has been necessary to deliver these essential services, and whereas the city of Frankfort values and recognizes the importance of the Frankfort Plant Board in meeting the daily needs and expectations of our citizens and businesses, now therefore be it resolved by the City of Frankfort Board of Commissioners that we express our unwavering support for the Frankfort Plant Board, its employees, staff, and executives, and its continued efforts to provide essential utility services to our beloved community. Be it further resolved that the City of Frankfort Board of Commissioners encourages all citizens to support and appreciate the valuable contributions of the Frankfort Plant Board and to continue to support this invaluable resource of the capital city. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be provided to the Frankfort Plant Board and made available to the public as a testament to the City of Frankfort's support and appreciation for the services provided by the Frankfort Plant Board. And I would ask that it be resolved by a majority vote next week.
Anybody have any objections to putting that on the agenda for next Monday? And I know that Plant Board they were intending to come in January for the work session. I think seeking a similar resolution. I haven't read theirs, but I think they've emailed it to the staff, and maybe we can compare.
We look at,
contrast and see.
I did know they were having one.
And if there's so we'll aim for next Monday, but let's maybe let staff look at the two and see what.
You can do that.
Yeah, because I thought that one was coming up for us too. Okay.
If there are differences between the two, do you all want us to bring forth both?
Maybe can you send both, and then I don't know if we need a committee to merge these together, but I don't know. I'd like to see both.
Okay.
And see, but but that
Okay.
seems to be. But I'd like to see both, and then maybe we can offer suggestions in the meantime.
Okay, okay. We'll figure it out.
Is that clear enough? Or?
Yes, we'll figure it out. Yeah.
And I know we have Enro coming to give a presentation next week. We also have paddocks on the agenda. Any other?
I would like to discuss affordable housing in a 10,000-foot view, but I would like to look at that from the aspect, and Mr. May is amazing, and at the very last minute provided me with a document that I haven't had a chance to go all the way through. But I know that the city owns some properties, and perhaps we can begin discussing, number one, what is affordable housing, but number two, how the city can incentivize local developers as opposed to out-of-town developers who are using our apartment complexes as tax write-offs. And I think that there should be some encouragement of local developers to better our city, and I think that's the way we do it. I don't want to restrict, capitalism in general or people's rights to right of alienation of their property. What I want to do is I want to encourage local folks to help solve the problem, and I think we can do that by stepping up and finding some properties that we already either have or could acquire. So I would like to have that discussion if possible.
January work session is the plan to have that presented. Have several ideas going. I'm meeting with Kentucky Housing next week to find out, to get answers to those questions. And we have a few proposals for y'all to try to look at, possibly adopt a committee on that we would ask a couple of you to sit on. If that works, it'd be January work session.
I'd be happy to volunteer if that comes up, Mayor.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that's enough here.
Yep. All right. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to go into executive session, KRS 61.8101C, litigation to discuss mediation involving a construction dispute. Action may be taken in open session.
Second.
Motion and a second to go into executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're now in executive session. And does anyone I'm now back in open session.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.